Ben?
Good morning, sir.
Got on breakfast, huh?
Yeah, I saved myself some money.
October 25th, 2016. This is the regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Let the record reflect Commissioners Johnson, Sobroff, Figueroa Villa, and Goldsmith are present, and we have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we start the meeting, I want to start off by offering my condolences on behalf of the entire Board of Police Commissioners to the family of Detective Nadine Hernandez-Fox. It's a loss for the department and our community. The Chief Beck and Commissioner Cynthia McLean-Hill are at her funeral this morning. So again, on behalf of the entire Board of Commissioners, we offer our condolences to the family, and it's a great loss for the department. Second thing I wanted to note was that on Friday of last week, I attended an event at Challengers Boys and Girls Club called Building Bridges Through Basketball. It was a great event. The NBA and the WNBA had some of their players participate, along with Brotherhood Crusade and LAPD members from both the 77th Division and Community Relationship Division. Chief Scott was there, and it was facilitated by Days of Dialogue. And it was a great event to promote understanding and communication between the community and the department. It was a great success. I also attended the use of force training that every officer is going through in the department. I attended that last week along with Commissioner Cynthia McLean-Hill as well. And that is the training where every officer is going through 6 different scenarios in addition to classroom instruction as well. And I was very impressed with the training and the realism in the scenarios and the feedback that the officers got going through the scenarios, and also that they gave back to the training division afterwards. And lastly, on Thursday of last week, Commissioner Shane Goldsmith and I attended a CPAB meeting for North Hollywood. I guess there were, about 30 or 40 people, 30 or 40 community members there. It was a great opportunity to share what we're doing on the commission and hear their concerns in the community. Any other commissioner comments this morning?
Yeah, you also went, and so did I, and a number of the commissioners, to the funeral up in
Yes, we did.
Up in Lancaster, where I think there were 7,000 or 8,000 people. Yeah, and I just wanted to read 2 tweets that I think are interesting now. NPR tweeted yesterday morning that radical activist Tom Hayden, who died Sunday, served in the California legislature for 18 years. I tweeted back to them that radical activist and this non-radical commissioner had a lot of breakfast to chat about LAPD. He acknowledged great progress and encouraged more. Tom Hayden was a friend of mine, and may he rest in peace. Okay.
Anything else? We go to the consent items. Do we have any comments on any of the consent
On the
items?
consent agenda items, we have 3 comment cards on item 1A.
Okay.
And 1D, I'm sorry. 1A and 1D.
Okay. Do any of my fellow commissioners wish to pull any of the other consent items?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve items 1C, D, E, F, and G?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So let's just go right to the comments on item 1A, please.
We have Michael Williams, General Jeff, and George Bezzetti. This is relative to the travel authority for the Chief of Police to attend the Major Cities Chiefs Association meeting.
I don't think the chief should be going no place. Okay, he needs to be here dealing with the stuff that he's doing. He should be resigning. That's what he needs to be focused on. What is he going to do after retirement? How is he going to, make a living for himself? Because, like cops, former cops, it's kind of tough out there for them. What's going to happen because, we're going to go after his pension because he's a murdering person. So he needs to focus on that. He don't need to be going nowhere to go to no major city chief association because he's not the chief of L.A. He's the former chief, effective when the people said so. So you need to keep him right here because he needs to be worried about what he's going to do, when he's going to retire. He needs to think about that because we need him to retire like today, by the weekend at most. We need that done. So we need him to resign and retire. He don't need to be going no place, not a place. He don't need to be leaving nowhere, okay? And this, I'm actually looking at this, and this has already happened. So why is this even on here? Did they spend money? You didn't want to show the money that it spent to send him on this trip because, you're using people's funds, people who don't want the chief here. You're using their money to make the chief go all around the world to spread the message of let's kill people. Because that's what you're doing. You send him over to places, and they say, okay, we're going to adopt the LAPD's model. Well, the LAPD's killed the most people. And even if you look at the stats by population, we're still middle of the road. So how in the hell are we the example, or he's the example of what a police chief or what a city police force should look like? He need to be staying here, and you need to be talking to him about resigning. Actually, all of you can fire him, so you need to be working on that and keep his ass here.
General Jeff?
Good morning.
Good morning, Commission. General Jeff, Skid Row community activist. Per the Brown Act, the agenda needs to disclose what the dollar amount is. If you look at all the other dollar amounts on this consent items, they actually are in the actual agenda. This item needs to be pulled because it is a major violation. We, the people, have no idea how much this trip cost. It wasn't a one day. Apparently, it was minimum 3 days, October 13th, 14th, and 15th. It is a violation of the Brown Act. Please pull this item and come back with and let the public know the full disclosure, what the amount was of the travel. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, this is just the travel authority. Upon the chief submitting an expense statement, that will come back to the commission. This is the authority.
Thank you. And the cost is actually in the report, which was lodging was $721, and the per diem is $64 a day. Sir?
Got 72 hours on that? Brown Act. I know it, you don't. Just ran into it back here 2 times. George Mazzetti, former director of policy for Cork, California. Sheriff Baca gave me this pen. I worked closely with him on fixing AB 109, and all of you know it. Why aren't you going back there and talking about y'all breaking the 2003 DOJ agreement with the help of the DOJ?
Sir,
Benita Gupta, no, this is on this. Having to do with chiefs. All of you signed this, having to do with you coming together. Are you going to be talking about the 2003 DOJ agreement and all of you breaking it?
Sir,
Charlotte.
This item relates to the travel authority for the chief.
I'm talking about that. Why should he be going? I want to know what he's going to talk about there. Are you going to talk about your law breaking here? Are you going to talk about you erasing the audio of the 5/5/15 police commission meeting, dude? That you took down off your website, but I have saved on mine from the day you did it, dude. And you have no right being here. You have no background in criminal justice, do you? All you do is take care of rich guys in sports. When they got legal trouble, you have to send it over to somebody with experience. What are you doing here? What are most of you doing here? I looked at you. You ain't got no background.
You're still off topic, sir.
I'm on topic. Because you're off topic. You don't spin me, dude. I'm a real civil rights leader. Ever heard of Cork, California? We're the only honest ones in this town. the work you didn't do fixing AB 109. I did.
This is
Want to
your
see the proof?
This is your last warning to get back on
Thank
topic.
you. I'll just go back right now. I got two more times coming to speak on
Thank you.
topic, unlike you.
Do I have a motion to approve item 1A?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Do we have any comments on item 1B?
We have none, sir.
Do we have any? No comments on 1B?
We, no.
I'll move
Okay.
approval of 1B.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
We do have a comment card on 1D.
Oh, 1D?
D.
Oh, okay.
We have Michael Williams. Michael Williams on item 1D. This is relative to a monetary donation in the amount of $5,000 from the Los Angeles Police Foundation.
So
How
again,
many
the
comments on this
LAPD.
item?
Are you talking during while I'm talking, Matt?
We can-
You're
you can
disrupting the
you can
meeting, Matt.
I didn't realize you were there, Mr. Williams. You can restart the clock, please.
Yes. I haven't started it, sir.
What do you think? I just disappeared? Oh,
Make
you
sure
don't need a holiday party, and especially for not $5,000. That's ridiculous. I mean, we throw parties all the time for like $20, right? So like that's ridiculous. You don't need no $5,000 to throw a holiday party. You don't need a holiday party, period, because all of y'all have been giving us bad Christmases. Mothers, brothers, sisters, fathers have to go on Christmas without their loved ones because y'all killed them. So y'all don't deserve no holiday party no way, because y'all ruined the holiday for so many people, so many families. They're not going to have their children at Christmas. They're not going to have their mother, their father there. So y'all don't need to go, y'all don't need to have any kind of parties or have anything, especially for no $5,000. You need to give that to Chitobia Ford. You need to give that to Lisa Simpson. You need to give that to Cardinal Snell's mom. You need to give that to all the other people who y'all have killed. That's where that $5,000 donation should go. But you have no shame, you have no sympathy, you have no kind of compassion for families that have been killed by the police. So you know what? I'm telling you, we should shut that thing down. We should find out. Because you guys are, that's ridiculous that you guys are basically celebrating the fact that you guys are the most murderous police department in the whole entire country. We should shut that shit down because that's not what the taxpayers want. That's not what y'all should be spending y'all time on. I know it's a donation, but if you guys had any kind of sense, if you guys had any kind of compassion, if you had any kind of common sense, and this is to the police in the room, if y'all had any kind of care for the people that you ruined lives of, took away people from, if you had any kind of sense, you guys would put this money, every money that's donated on that sheet should be going to the families of people who you've killed. That's a long list.
And we have no other comment cards on this item, sir.
Do I have a motion to approve item 2D? Or sorry, 1D. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, we're on item number 2, regular agenda items. We have comment cards on 2A, 2B, 2D, and 2E.
Okay. On item 2C, do any of my fellow commissioners feel a need to hear that report?
No, sir.
Do I have a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Great, thank you. Okay, so let's go to item 2A, please.
I believe there's no comment card on 2F either, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, there is one. Okay. So on 2A, Inspector General's report dated September 28, 2016, relative to the inspection of taser and beanbag shotgun deployment.
Good morning, Mr. President,
Good
members
morning.
of the Commission. The Office of the Inspector General conducted an inspection of the deployment of 2 of the department's less lethal options, those 2 being the taser and the beanbag shotgun. To conduct this inspection, we looked at deployment from 3 different perspectives. First, we inspected the department's methods for assigning and supervisory checking the assignment of tasers. Secondly, we examined 8 areas of the department's 21 patrol areas And for those 8 areas, asked the area commands to provide us 1 use of beanbag shotgun and 1 use of taser after the September 15 the policy change where that was possible. We examined, the purpose in doing that was to see whether the first responding officers had the less lethal options with them when they arrived. The third option that we did are the 12 dates that we identified in the table for those incidents. We examined all officers who are on duty in the 8 areas on those days. It was a body of 490 officers, and the purpose was to see out of that entire population of 490 how many of the officers had less lethal options in their possession. We found that 14% of the officers did not have tasers, and 22% of the officers did not have the optional beanbag shotgun with them. Based on this inspection, we came forward with 3 recommendations. First, we recommend that the department's KITS system, which is the tracking system for handing out equipment, that system be modified so that when tasers are checked out, that rather than having them checked out just to the 2-officer unit, that the tasers are checked out to an individual officer so the department could identify, in the case of a car where only 1 taser is provided for 2 officers, the department could identify which of the 2 officers did not have a taser as policy requires. Secondly, as part of our inspection, we noted that the department, according to the commands, did not have a sufficient number of beanbag shotguns for all units to be properly equipped. Therefore, we're recommending that the department examine purchasing additional beanbag shotguns so that all of the units in the field can be equipped. And if that is a viable option, we suggest that the department modify its policy to require that all units check out and have available to them a beanbag shotgun. I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Did you make a recommendation about the accessibility of the beanbag shotguns? Because sometimes they were in the trunk because we didn't have the mounts. And am I wrong on that?
No, you're right.
Okay.
That's correct. We didn't make a recommendation. We're aware from our discussions with the department on this topic that they are considering moving the beanbags to the front of the car.
Yeah.
And that apparently the standard shotgun that has been used for so long is becoming less of a viable use of force for the department. That's not my area of expertise, and the department can probably comment on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Commander John Sherman from the Office
Morning.
of Operations. And with me is Captain Paul Espinosa from Training Division.
Morning, sir.
I'll answer most of any operational questions you may have, and our Training Division oversees our weapon testing and acquisition and those sorts of things. Specifically, Mr. Sobroff, to your question relative to weapon systems being available in the passenger compartment of a vehicle, yes, that is a project that's underway. Presently, we have 537 vehicles in our fleet that have a multi-weapon carrier in the passenger compartment of the vehicle. So we aren't completely outfitted. Obviously, there's some fiscal considerations, but that
How many
project,
don't? 537 do, how many don't? Is that half?
No.
No, it's not half. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,400 black and white
So it's
patrol
about a
vehicles.
third.
Yes, sir. And we spoke yesterday with our motor transport, and they are working on it. It's a budgeted item, and they are trying to outfit all new vehicles as well as outfitting the older vehicles, specific to that question that you just asked. Would you like me to speak on the other recommendations from the Inspector General's office?
Sure. I mean, anything you'd like to comment on? I didn't have any other questions. It was pretty
I didn't either, but I'm
self-explanatory.
interested in your thoughts on the recommendations.
Very well. Relative to the KITS program, which is specifically an inventory management system that it allows us to scan and barcode equipment so we can track where it's at. We agree with the Inspector General's observation that we should have an accountability mechanism for who has what equipment out in the field. We don't believe that KITS is the program for that, and we don't believe that our current mechanism of how we operate with officers going out to the field every day, lining up at the kit room, that is the fix for it. But we do have some other solutions that are in the works or are already activated. One being, yes, sir.
Do you guys know that?
I was not aware of that specific item, but we wouldn't have any objection to a system that would provide the accountability.
Okay, good.
Do you want to come back to us in a period of time with your fix on that item? If you wanted to do something.
We already know it now?
Yes, I know the fix now, and
Okay.
we can also come back. What we have is we have two things that are taking place. The first is we're in possession of an increase in the number of tasers that we have. We have 4,100 additional tasers in hand. Those are going to be deployed out into the field in the next couple weeks. When they're deployed out in the field, the officers are going to have a much greater accessibility to their tasers. Presently, the mechanism during the audit period, there were occasions where we didn't have enough tasers in the kit room because they were assigned out to individual officers, and we didn't have a large enough inventory to cover each individual officer, as well as having a reserve in the kit room to be issued out. That problem is going to be resolved by the issuance of these new tasers that we've received. Secondly,
Excuse me, can you please stop disrupting the meeting? Ma'am, in the glasses, you're disrupting. I do not know your name. Okay, Jyoti, if you disrupt again, I'm going to ask you to leave. And sir, if you disrupt the meeting again, I'm going to ask you to leave too. I asked both of you. I've given you both warnings, and if you disrupt again, I'm going to ask you to leave. So please, if you have something to say, submit a comment card. You can still submit a comment card on this item. It's not too late.
secondly, the kits program, when we individually issue a piece of equipment to an officer and he or she retains it, that will be in the kit system. So that will be able to be looked at, as well as having a reserve. And then the third item is our evidence.com system, which is our review mechanism that we use, has evolved quite a bit in the last year or so, and it's the system we use for body-worn video. We are taking all 7,000 or 7,500 of our tasers, and we're entering them to evidence.com, which will also be employee-based. So it'll be by an employee's name that they have this specific taser with them. And that I believe will answer all the concerns that the Inspector General had about being able to determine who has a taser and who doesn't. Additionally, we are looking, and Chief Moore and I have been drilling down to what the computer screen, when the officers log on, onto the computer and for their dispatch, we need to refine some of the groups in there, and we're working on that and with our communications folks to get that log-on screen a little easier to use. For instance, with the taser, it presently has one box, which is what was identified in the audit, and we're going to put 2 boxes in there, and those sorts of things. So I really believe that this issue is resolved relative to the kit system and being able to identify who has that specific piece of equipment.
Are you comfortable with that solution?
Yes, I am. We were generally aware that the department was looking at more tasers, and that would certainly be an effective way to handle the problem.
Great.
Relative to the second recommendation, relative to the inventory of beanbag shotguns, a little larger of a problem because we don't have enough, and there's some fiscal issues associated with that in obtaining more weapons. We believe in order to outfit every Seagull black and white out there would cost us about $500,000 to get all the equipment out in the vehicles.
How many additional, is that the cost of the shotguns or a cost of the mounting equipment, or both?
That's the cost of the weapon itself. Not the mounting system was a different issue that I was speaking on earlier. This is to essentially to.
How many additional shotguns is that?
About 1,100. We presently have 552 beanbag shotguns in our inventory. And
how many?
How much did you say that would cost?
500,000. How many did you say we currently have?
552.
We have 550, and we need another 1,100. So we basically have a third of what we need.
If we were able to then put them out in every vehicle. The other component to this is we are in the midst of a pilot program where we are looking at a different tool, a 40 millimeter, similar to a beanbag shotgun, but a different tool. That pilot is underway in 4 area commands and Metropolitan Division. It is not finished yet. It hasn't been evaluated, but we have had a number of uses of that weapon system, and it has been successful as a less lethal munition that may be very valuable. So what we may do in evaluating that is the department may choose to take a different path with a different weapon than the beanbag shotgun, which is a weapon system that's been around for a very long time, and there may be a better tool out there. So Captain Espinosa is overseeing that evaluation. Should you have any specifics relative to that? But like I said, that is not complete yet.
When is that evaluation going to be
The
complete?
end of this month. So that will be, we did a 90-day pilot. So the end of this month, and we will put gathering our information on that right now, and then also breaking down the uses of it.
When will you be in a position to come back to the commission and give us a report on the results of that test?
I would, if you could give us approximately a month or so, we should have that, most of the data. It's just a matter of putting together the final report.
Commissioner, I'd ask for 60 days. I think the internal review of this, that weapon system is an evolution for our less lethal. We do have hopes and high hopes, but we want to ensure that we look at that closely in determining the transition from a beanbag shotgun less lethal solution to 40 millimeter. It is quite an investment, both in training as well as in procurement of the equipment and carriages and so forth. So I think 30 days is ambitious, and I'd ask for 60.
Okay.
Are other departments using them already?
They are. I can't tell you exactly who is right now, but other departments do use them.
And Metro has used them for a while, right?
And Metro does use them, and then there are different options as far as their launching systems and different things, but Metro does use them.
Good.
Commander Sherman, can you also discuss the effort with Training Division to repurpose existing shotguns to deepen the availability of beanbag shotguns, as well as the advisory notice relative to the issuance of the available beanbag shotguns?
So, if you want to speak on the repurposing of the current shotguns, that's just a concept of taking an existing shotgun and changing it, which has a cost associated with it. You have to change the barrel. And then we would lose our inventory of shotguns. But Captain Espinosa can speak on that.
Yes, sir. So we have a lot more shotguns than we do beanbag shotguns, just department-wide. The approximate cost of a beanbag shotgun is right around $700. The approximate cost to convert a shotgun into a beanbag shotgun is approximately $373. So we could do some of those at a lesser cost, but we would have to look at the overall impacts on the department as far as within operations and then department-wide as to where we would be taken from, because the shotgun itself is a tool that we also need.
So currently, Office of Operations is asked Office of Administrative Service. There's a belief that there's a surplus that we have with the other weapon systems that are at the department's disposal. So Training Division currently is assessing whether or not there is a surplus or an available reserve that we could repurpose for beanbag shotguns. And in addition to that, just to cut this to bring this to a close, the Office of Operations is also issuing a reminder of our expectation that all available beanbag shotguns be deployed in the field whenever feasible. So our expectation will be reinforced. As a reminder to the Commission, approximately 2.5 years ago, the Department Office of Operations, then First Assistant Chief Earl Pasinger, directed office personnel to take less lethal, whenever possible, less lethal tools. At that point, it was tasers and beanbags. A year ago, the organization moved to require all uniformed personnel, non-supervisory, to carry tasers, so that was a further strengthening or deepening of less lethal options. Today, we'll be issuing guidance that the expectation is that all available beanbag shotguns in a station are dispatched into the field. That will be a further strengthening with our eventual pursuit of achieving equipment. The long range is to look at our vehicles to load all these systems into cars. Like we have spare tires in vehicles. Mm-hmm. Currently, as you visit our stations, you see our officers carry suitcases of material back and forth. And so that's one of the hindrances of officers carrying all this material, is just frankly the amount of material they've carried back and forth. Long range, and talking with Chief Beck, the desire is to get a patrol-ready vehicle that has this equipment systems already pre-installed. All of this will, of course, hinge on the availability of funding, because none of these, whether it's a shotgun mount, allowing a beanbag shotgun to be positioned up front, in excess of $500,000 to do that for the department. You've heard today in excess of $500,000 to acquire additional beanbags. I'm sure that it's much greater than that for a 40 millimeter system, and if we were to pre-stage everything again, these costs would go up. So we'll look to the Commission's support as these plans unfold.
Great, thank you.
And that was the third recommendation.
Right.
About having them in the
Right. So, Mr. Tiefank, we have a change to the first recommendation. How best to address that? Can we just say that the department will identify, will have a system in place to identify the specific officer to who the taser is checked out?
What I would suggest, sir, is that you approve the report as written with a report back in 60 days on recommendation number 1 and also on the evaluation of the 40 millimeter beam round.
Okay.
That way you're including both of them in the same
Great.
report.
Someone want to make that motion?
That's what I was going to say.
We have 4 public comment cards, sir.
Let's call so we have a motion and a second, and let's call the comments on this item.
Here we have 6 comment cards. We have Jerry Dietrich, General Jeff, and Michael Novick.
Thank you.
My name is Jerry Dietrich, and I'm with Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. Anyhow, I was reading this report, and it's a little bit confusing to me. Maybe you guys can understand, but anyhow, on page 2, it says the OIG found sufficient number of tasers for each officer to have one. Yet on page 5, the training unit supervisor from 7 areas said there were sufficient tasers. So I don't understand. Are there or are there not? Anyhow, that's all about the tasers, I have to say, really. And the beanbags, of 58 supervisors, only 3 checked out a beanbag shotgun. It's on page 6. I don't understand that. I mean, I would think 58 supervisors would all check them out, but that's just my opinion. And on your recommendations, it seems to me like if 2 and 3 you could put them together, and it seems like if you had enough tasers for everybody, you wouldn't have to have this one that says when available. That's all I have to say about that. And 2 things I would like to say are no drones and get rid of Beck.
Thank you for your comments. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is General Jeff. I saw Commissioner Goldsmith out in the lobby before the meeting. I just wanted my first time meeting you. Welcome. As far as the annual LAPD budget is $1.5 billion. So it's quite troubling to hear the department's presentation today and say that they don't have the necessary equipment already in place. When we hear of the officer-involved shootings, officer-involved killings, officer-involved murders, however you want to define them, many times you hear that the tasers did not work. So nowhere in this presentation did we hear about any specificity regarding the modifications or the type of taser units themselves, whether they have adjustment capabilities in terms of the strength of the voltage that can be manipulated in any way, form, or fashion by each individual officer. Because if they can manipulate the units and turn down the voltage, then that could be justification for them saying the tasers didn't work. Hence, they had to go to another level of weaponry, which then often leads to an officer-involved shooting, and so which then therefore also can include death. And so we, the people, are concerned about these actual taser units and what the companies, the manufacturing. We need more specificity in terms of the details of the taser units, which also may factor in on the cost. But at $1.5 billion, we would like to know that this commission is doing everything possible to keep we, the people, alive in regards to tasers working appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Michael Novick.
Morning. I'm glad to see that all the boys here still like to talk about their toys. I think that a couple of points. One is that the police need to be disarmed, not armed further. The original police force, the Bobbies, operated without guns for a couple of centuries, and there's no reason why the LAPD has to have more and more and more weapons. If you think that, quote-unquote, less lethal weapons is the solution to the problem of police killings, you're sorely mistaken. If I was inquiring of the Inspector General about this report, the first question I would ask is they look at not random use of these or assignment of these so-called tools that the Assistant Chief called them, But I would say the Inspector General should have looked at the case of the murder of Riddell Jones and the case of the murder of Ezell Ford to find out whether those officers had any options besides shooting to kill in those situations. You had 60-some-odd people killed by the LAPD in the last 3 years. The Inspector General should have looked at every one of those cases and seen whether those officers had the option to use something less lethal, quote unquote. Less lethal means it's still lethal, and that's why I don't support it. But the idea of spending $500,000 to outfit people with additional weapons on top of the weapons they already have is not the solution. The solution is changing the entire relationship of policing in this city. And the last thing I want to say is that if you listen to all these reports, public comments, and then you go, the motion is on the table, all in favor say aye, you're derelict in your duty. After you listen to these comments, you should inquire further of the Inspector General and the rest of these officers here and respond to what the public is saying to you and take your responsibility to represent the public seriously, and then send this report back for reevaluation so they can look at those 60-some-odd people that you've killed in the last 3 years, whether those cops had something else they could have used instead of shooting to kill.
Thank you. The next three speakers, Billy Davenport, Tiffany Guerra, and Beth Kemp.
Good morning. My name is Billy Davenport. I wanted to, just for the sake of all of us here in the community, not everyone in the community is bad, just like not every cop is a saint. I mean, it's impressive to see the Los Angeles Police Department wanting to use more stunning weaponry instead of more lethal weaponry. But the question is, the lethal weapons are actually more accessible and more attainable. They're easier to get to, the gun on the hip as opposed to a beanbag or a taser. And a gun is more likely to be used in interaction with a cop and a citizen. So what I'd like to say is, if we are going to use less lethal weapons, or if the police are going to use less lethal weapons, couldn't they be placed somewhere where they're as easily accessible as the lethal weapons? And at what point do we hold the police accountable for the misuse of such weaponry, even the lethal weaponry? Like, at what point does it become a cop's accountability on whether to use which? Or I would have thought that police training would help them to be able to make decisions on which weapon to use. But, according to news and what's going on in our community, it looks like they're ready to pull the lethal weapon out before they're ready to pull anything to stun. And in a lot of cases, a lot of people could have been shot in the leg or shot in the arm instead of just totally killed over such a disagreement between a citizen and a cop. And a cop should be able to serve the community properly instead of combating us.
Tiffany Guerra.
Thank you for your comments.
Good morning. So I wasn't planning on speaking on this item, but I felt compelled to, just listening to some of the information that you all were putting forward. What I don't understand, and maybe I missed some of the background information on this, is why there's this huge assumption made that equipping every car with beanbag shotguns and tasers, every officer, that will reduce violence or make for a more peaceful and better community. I don't understand. You're talking about weaponry. It's a weaponry system, and you're all getting very engaged in the details of exactly how many is it and where will they be mounted? Will they be easily accessible? You're talking about using weapons, making sure every cop car and every cop has weapons to use on the citizens, and that is somehow, we're supposed to just accept that is a way to reduce violence. Where is the research that's been done to show that? And I mean that. I mean, I'm talking to you as well, sitting here at the table. Hello. I mean, this is where's the research that's been done to show that actually, when you use weapons on people like that that overall that reduces crime and makes for a better community. And I mean that. I'm not, this isn't just, like, where's that research? Has that been done? I would hope that would be done somewhere.
Miss, we're not allowed to give you full explanations, but yes, that research has been done, and it is available. It is available online, and if you reach back to us, if you reach back to us outside this meeting, I'll be happy to give you that information.
I sincerely, I'm not even being like a smart ass about it. I would really be interested to see that, because it's like this assumption is made that if there's more crime in areas, and we see this, in all your reports, your use of force reports, this assumption that if there's more crime, let's put more police officers in there. And it's like, why is that assumption made? And then, then we need more weapons. Let's make sure they have beanbag shotguns and everyone has a taser. Meanwhile, people are being killed with tasers. Last year, 48 people were killed with tasers. So we don't even know that your police officers are trained. Well, we see that they're not trained. We see that they're not trained well to respond. But we're giving all this money to give them extra weapons. It just doesn't make sense.
Thank you for your comments.
Beth Kemp.
First, I would like to say if this guy here, Espinoza, is in charge of training, he should be fired. Because whenever they pull out these less lethal weapons, where do they aim? They aim for our faces. How do I know this? Because Art Walk 2012, those 40mm grenades you're talking about, a young man was shot in the eye and almost lost his eye and had to have surgery. And another young man was shot 4 times in the chest with internal bleeding and internal damage. This is a grenade that is 1.5 inches long by 2.5 inches wide and is compacted for impact and does extreme internal damage. Now the beanbag guns, let's go there. I got shot with one in the face in 2013. The beanbag exploded and shrapnel hit me everywhere. It missed both of my eyes by fractions of an inch. My entire chest and my arms were covered, and 4 of us got shot with that one beanbag, and it looked like we had just come out of duck hunt. Okay? If he's in charge of training people, then why are they aiming them at our faces? Just last Friday on a mental health call, instead of responding with a mental health evaluation unit, LAPD Central Division responded with 30 officers for a mentally ill man with two tear gas guns and a less lethal, again, pointed at our faces. Since the cops don't know how to use these, I suggest maybe you start looking up the damage these weapons do to people. Look on Google, there's plenty of pictures. Look at what these actually do to people and the long-term damage this suffers. I agree with other speakers. Cops don't need to be armed. And you're talking about leaving them in cop cars. How often do these cop cars get stolen? How often do they leave their trunks open where people could grab the things that are out of their cars? Give me a break. The last thing we need is the cops putting more weapons on the street to hurt people instead of helping a community. They are not working here to protect and serve anything other than capitalism, rich people, and white supremacy.
Is that the last speaker on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
I don't have a card for you, sir.
Okay, so you can comment
Go
it
ahead,
during the
you can-
public comment. Okay, so all those in favor?
Give us 2 minutes.
No, it's okay. We've got to keep to the rule about putting the cards in.
Give us 2 minutes.
Who'd you give it to?
I gave it to this officer right here. He actually gave it back to me to ask me what.
Give us 2 minutes.
Was his card in or not?
I don't see a card for him, sir.
So all those in favor? We need, Shane? All those in favor? Okay. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next?
Okay, we have item number 2B. We have one comment card on that item.
We have one comment card on 2B?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just call the comment. General Jeff.
General Jeff, sir? Whatever you want to do.
And this is relative to the grant application and award for the 2016-2017 Minor Decoy Shoulder Tap Grant Program.
Do we have any questions of the department, or does anybody want a presentation? Okay, so let's just hold on. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. We the people make a recommendation. Hi, my name is General Jeff for the record. We the people make a recommendation that when an agenda says, and this specifically says for the 2016 minor decoy / shoulder tap grant program, that when this item comes up to be discussed, that we the people can be better engaged in terms of inclusion. Could we get a brief description of exactly of maybe a one-liner or a two-sentence line introductory of what the program is? I have no idea if it's minor decoy as it's like a small decoy, or if it's minor decoy as it's about minors as in youth. And so then we can go on and guesstimate all we want, but it would only be fair. This is a Brown Act meeting, and you want to include we the people. Can we get some type of a descriptive introduction before the presentations and discussion? Thank you.
Yeah. Jeff, hold on for a second, sir. Mr. T?
Yes, General Jeff, you're well aware that the agendas are posted online on Friday. The documents are all available under the Brown Act, the complete document, the complete grant document, and also in the back of the room, copies of the reports are there. The copies of the reports are available to review in our office effective Friday also. There is a copy of the reports in the back of the room unless some...
Get off your seat and go look. There are no copies of the report back there.
No, it's not. The big binder is not. It's not.
If the binder is not there, then someone pick the binder up, okay? Thank you, sir, for your observations. They're appreciated.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So, thank you. So to respond, based on the information
Jeff,
that
I
you
can't
get,
hear you because that guy in the back is talking. So, sir, that's your last warning. Let General Jeff speak, sir. Go ahead.
Thank
General?
you, sir. So now, all due respect, Mr. Tefank, when you say that the binder and the information is in the back, there isn't enough time, simply isn't enough time for each of for public to do the necessary research to even understand the specifics on terms of what this is. If they're barely late in the saying, they begin at 9 o'clock, at 10 at a time, then to fill out the necessary speaker cards prior to the meeting start. If the meeting starts at 9:30 and we still have to do research and take ample time to go through, I mean, it just isn't enough ample time. All of us, I live in Skid Row, all of us don't have access to computers and have 24-hour access in terms of the information being posted online from Friday till to this morning.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Was that the only speaker?
Yes, sir.
Okay. May we have a motion for approval? You turned in a card on this one? What?
I don't have cards.
Sorry. Oh, that was on item 3?
Yeah.
Okay. You also turned in one on what? So either she turned one in or she didn't turn one in?
I
No?
don't have one, sir.
Okay, so we'll take your next one, and then you can speak at public comment. Thank you. Okay, all those in, I'm sorry? Okay, and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Next up is, where are we, E?
2D, sir.
2,
And we have one comment card. We have
2D.
2D, application for the 2016-2018 Intellectual Property Enforcement Grant.
Okay, do we have any questions of staff on this? Okay, go ahead. Commissioner?
Good morning. Could you talk a little bit about enforcement at the street level versus at the manufacturing distributor level, and what relevance that has to this report?
Good morning, Commissioner. I'm Captain Cynthia Lee, the Commanding Officer, Detective
Cynthia,
Support
the
and
microphone.
Vice Division.
Will you speak into the mic a little better? Thanks.
Good morning.
Thank you, Captain.
I am going to turn that over to Detective Ishitani. He's the OIC of that unit.
Good morning, Board of Commissioners.
Morning, sir.
To answer your question, ma'am, the street level enforcement is usually handled by the area vice units, and those are the street vendors that are dealing with the counterfeit handbags and watches, and also goes up to the counterfeit pharmaceutical drugs that are being sold in the streets of Los Angeles. Any health and safety products that are being sold. Our unit is in the level where you just mentioned the distribution point, where it comes from our port and it comes from the mail. Any mail transit locations in conjunction with Custom Border Protections, Homeland Security Investigation, and with the FBI. Our unit is cross-deputized as FBI agents, so we are allowed to actually board these, well, not board the ship, but open these containers to inspect them to verify that these items are not being sent in our ports in the Los Angeles area.
Thank you.
Okay, let's hear how many public comments do
We have General Jeff.
Okay. And that's it?
And that's it.
Okay. General Jeff is gone. Oh,
here
Jeff,
it
you're up.
2D.
D, like
D.
David.
Application for the 2016-2018 Intellectual Property Enforcement Grant.
2D.
Thank you. The topic is intellectual property enforcement. And, you know, I have a issue where 2 years ago in 2014, actually 2015, it was last year. It was the end of 2014 where the Central Division Los Angeles Police Department used my intellectual property, which is, I'm wearing it on a T-shirt, the Skid Row City Limit mural. They used it in fundraising opportunities along with the Los Angeles Police Foundation to raise funds to get weapons and other materials to criminalize the homeless folks in Skid Row. So now that to me is so disrespectful that a mural that was created for the people of the people and by the people of Skid Row, and we're talking about the residents, many of which who were homeless, we painted this mural on the San Julian Street between 5th Street and 6th Street in Skid Row, and then for LAPD to not only pull their car up and stand out and take photos because it's an iconic mural that people come from all over the world, just like they come to see the Hollywood sign, and that's its true intention. But when you see the LAPD Photoshop and manipulate the actual photos and the art that was created by Skid Row residents, the very communities that they individuals that they say they protect and serve, and then to manipulate and misuse and abuse our intellectual property for a monetary gain for the department to then turn around and criminalize us and Photoshop it to where they wiped out who actually created the mural, any of our signatures, as any mural is, and there's so much that they didn't even contact me in terms of getting a licensee, an agreement to get permission if it was okay to use it in any shape, form, or fashion, just out of respect for the community. When they know it's my project, they know it's my mural, and then to generate tens of thousands of dollars, and not even contribute any art supplies for the community. There's a lot of different options that could have happened. And so when we talk about this intellectual property grant, we need more respect to the community. Thank you.
We have no other comment cards, sir.
Okay. General Jeff, I'd like to see some of the photographs of that whenever you can.
Indeed, I have a package. How do I get it to you?
Through your friend, Mr. T-Fank, or leave it at that restaurant, the Blue, what's it, the Blue Hamburger place?
Cafe.
Blue Cafe, either place. Okay. We have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Okay. We're on 2E. We have 4 public comment cards.
I'm sorry?
We have 4 public comment cards for 2E.
Okay.
Upgrade of the jail video system to keep video for city and required retention
Do we
schedules.
have any questions or
I have a question.
comments? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Good morning. Can you tell us what we do with the video when there's a death in custody or use of force complaint in terms of how long we keep it and so on?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tom Brown. I'm the commanding officer of facilities management. When we get a request
Tom,
for...
can you move that up
I'm
to you?
speaking into the mic, and it's a little slower if
Mike's
you can,
down,
sir.
Mike's down a little bit today.
When we get a request for video after a use of force event or any event that happens, we verify that we actually have it. Because of the limited time that we actually retain the videos, yes, we ask people to give us as much information as possible or get us the request as quickly as possible.
Tom, can you read a little closer to the microphone? They can't hear you in the back.
Is this better?
There you go.
Okay. Sorry about that. The The video is pulled and then is retained, and it's given to whatever entity is investigating the incident at the time. Once it's pulled off the system, it can be retained for as long as necessary. The issue that we have right now is that the system only retains video for 30 days. So if we don't get that request before the video system starts rewriting over the DVR, then we have an issue with losing the video.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's hear the speakers. 4 or 5, how many do you have?
We have 5, we have 6. We have Tiffany Guerra,
Okay.
Billy Davenport, and Jamie Garcia.
So I was confused and also disturbed when I read the letter from Charlie Beck to this commission board regarding the upgrade of the video system. I was confused because we consistently see Charlie Beck held up in the press as being a model leader, an innovative leader, and the LAPD as held up as being a model police force for the nation. But then in this letter, he's basically admitting that that the video system has not been up to code for several years now. It was falling very short, and it's not even. It's going to need another $1.4 million, or I'm sorry, how much is it? $1.4 million to fix the system so that it will be up to code, and that still won't happen until 2019, which of course. In the meantime, so this is a city, again, that's being held up as a model police force, but he's failing dramatically to even comply with the most basic city code that has been in place for years now. And I was distressed. So that confused me, first of all. And then I was distressed when I considered how the focus is on upgrading this system and not on giving answers to the family of Waukesha Wilson and thinking about how he failed that family in particular. On June 7th, Charlie Beck told this police commission that officials had reviewed the video footage from that day, and he said it appears that checks were made in compliance with regulations. So then I was wondering again, if that was an instance where the videotape clearly did not fail because he said it was viewed and apparently checks were made, as he states, then why is it now 7 months later and we still don't know what happened? So you're wanting to make upgrades to this video system. You're asking for $1.4 million to do it, but you're failing to, in an instance when you say you have the video, you saw the video, checks were in compliance, it's 7 months later and you still can't tell us what happened.
Thank you.
Billy Davenport.
My argument was similar to the women that just spoke. How do we upgrade a system, upgrade a failing system that's continuing to be a failure? And then in listening to this gentleman, he explained that only the agencies that want to review the footage are able to view the footage. And what happens when something happens and there's not an agency that wants to view it? Does that footage get tossed out, or is there anyone that's going to be able to pick that footage up and say, "Oh, look what just happened here"? I've been in the LA County Jail before. I know exactly. There's wrongdoing all over that place, from the deputies to the CEOs to anybody else. And if that camera catches them doing anything without an agency requesting to see that, how do we know that camera system is catching some injustice in the jail system? I mean, even if let's say hypothetically an inmate attacks a cop. You know what I mean? I bet they can utilize that system to pinpoint exactly which inmate did it and how he did it from each particular angle. But if said cop does the same thing and there's not a agency that wants to review that footage, does he just go home? That's just my question for you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Jamie Garcia, followed by General Jeff, Michael Williams, Melina Abdullah, and George Bozelli.
Miss Lisa Hines lost her child in custody of LAPD and Metropolitan Detention Center. And just as stated before, we still are very unclear about what has occurred. It appears that there is extensive noncompliance on the use of video in the jail system. Not only was the video not retained for appropriate amount of time, which should be 2 years, but only for 30 days, but let us also remember that MDC was at least 80% out of compliance for safety checks, which was stated in the original report that came out after Waukesha Wilson was taken from us. Waukesha Wilson died in your custody, which is a devastating example of how dangerous it is to be held in your custody. Now we are talking about $1.1 million to replace a camera system. Another devastating example of how LAPD squanders the community's money. This compliance issue is a facade and an empty reform that is a media attempt to hide the inherent violence entailed in interacting with LAPD. These jails need to be closed and resources need to be put into the community. Every day we hear of more jails being built in our community. Now we have the Board of Supervisors today voting on building another women's jail. How much more women will die in state custody? Jails are not rehabilitative, nor are they healthy to our community. Your cameras will not stop your inherent state violence.
Next speaker.
General Jeff.
It's extremely difficult, General Jeff for the record, extremely difficult to hear about potential over $1 million of systems upgrade when we think about Metro Detention Center being the newest jail that LAPD, the department, has. And just as we have the mother of deceased Waukesha Wilson, it's troubling to know that whatever system in place failed her family. The department is in an awkward position because it's got to be held accountable for the death because it happened within the department's facilities, and therefore we, the people, we, the taxpayers of the city of Los Angeles, are going to wind up paying a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because when LAPD comes out with a statement that says she died by suicide, which is not possible based on the telephone unit that is in the jail system, that if this is the most recent facility that the prisons have modified those telephone units decades ago, and so whoever signed off on that portion of the modifications of the implementation of this new jail facility is going to be held culpable for this death, which therefore means there's nothing that the department can do to diffuse this. And so we, the people, are going to be fighting this the entire step of the way in terms of what needs to be done to improve this. But the problem is we've got Ms. Hines here who lost her daughter. There's nothing that the department can say that can fix this. And so the problem is wherever these new camera systems are going to be put in place, there needs to be, for better protection of not only the department, but the department will be losing taxpayers' money going out to victims, millions and millions of dollars that could be going towards positive programming and healing our community. So there's a lot more that needs to be done better.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. Who's the next speaker?
The next speaker, Michael Williams, followed by Melina Abdullah.
And that's it?
George Bozzetti.
There's three more?
3 more, sir.
Okay. Mr. Williams?
So upgrading the system means nothing, right? This is just like body cameras, everything else. When you can't see the video and only your officers can see the video and they can say whatever story they want to make up. As we see with constantly, we see with police video, right? When we look at Waclan McDonald, when we look at Walter Scott, when we look at Tamir Rice, all these other, we can go on, right? We can go on. Time after time, we see the video, we see the release of the video, and it goes completely against the police's account of what happened. So I don't give a damn about these cameras, because if you guys are the only people going to see it, why should waste $1 million on that? It's not the video camera systems that failed Waukesha Wilson. It's the system itself that failed Waukesha Wilson. So there's no point of upgrading these jail cameras when we have the same cops, the same policies, the same institution that killed her. Bustamante already said that there was an officer involved in the death. He already had made that claim. So we know that something happened. We know one of your officers did something to Waukesha Wilson or was involved with Waukesha Wilson's death, but you won't release the video. Why? But you can release a 2-little clip of Carnell Snell holding what y'all say is a gun. You can release that. That's okay. But Waukesha Wilson can't get her video put out. Jesse Morrell can't get his video put out. So again, you guys, this video camera stuff can go away. The body cams, this thing can go away until you fix the root issue, which is the LAPD itself. Until that's fixed, ain't none of this matter. Release Waukesha Wilson's video.
Thank you, sir.
Melina Abdullah.
So I'm speaking to you all because they're not listening. They're not listening. I want us to remind ourselves of what happened after Waukesha Wilson's body was stolen from us. Her mother and her aunt and her family immediately came and asked for the help of the community, and we all engaged in trying to get justice for Waukesha Wilson. And immediately, we requested that video. Right now, they're trotting out some lie about how the video may be gone because it automatically deletes in 30 days. We've been requesting that video in voice, in letter, through action, from the moment that Waukesha Wilson's body was stolen. So we don't need to believe their lies. Their whole manipulation trying to get more taxpayer dollars to fund their system is a lie. And we need to think about what it is we're trying to do. We need to think about, I was trying to think about the data and how we can convince them, but it is no convincing them. And I'm sitting here behind Sister Lisa, who is experiencing something that we're not experiencing, right? This is not a question of policy. This is also a question of life, of her daughter's life. So what are we going to do? How are we going to demand something better? Shane Goldsmith has been, I heard people mumbling it here, has been a tremendous disappointment, and I hope that you shift your position. You walked past us last week in your suit and waved at us like you were Miss America. You're not Miss America. We know you have a brother who's incarcerated. Do something for the people. Do something for the people. How dare you be a part of their quorum? How dare you be a part of their quorum? Whose side are you on? It's time for you to ask yourself that. Are you down with Steve Soboroff? Or are you down with the people? And let's
Next
all
speaker.
say our name.
Next speaker.
Say our name. Say our name. Say our name. Summon her spirit. Say her name. Ashe.
Okay, the next speaker, George Bozzetti. Or Bozzelli, I'm sorry.
George Bozzetti, former Director of Policy for CORE California. I was just down in Anaheim for the police protest down there. I've been watching these police commission meetings and crying. I see these people coming in here in good faith, trying to talk you to stop the killing nationally.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to stay on topic, but you can.
I am on topic.
No, you're not. So that you can. We'll stop the clock, okay? Just in case you want to get on topic, we'll give you the time. You can come into public comment and talk about anything.
Okay,
you
I'll
want.
do that right now. You asked for it, bud, you're going to get it. You arrested me, brought me here, okay? You refused my phone calls, guaranteed federally and nationally, Supreme Court decisions within 3 hours. A day here,
So,
nothing.
let's see,
3 days in the Twin Towers, nothing.
This is your last warning, sir.
Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to let you be fools again. Here we go. It's all on tape and it's going up today. Bye.
Okay, see ya.
We have no other comment cards on this item, sir.
Okay, do we have a motion for approval of item E, 2E?
Motion to approve item 2E.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay.
Okay, we have one comment card on 2F, sir. Would you like me to just
There are
call
only
the
three of
comment
us here.
card?
Next,
On 2F, we have one comment card. We have General Jeff.
General Jeff, sir.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we have a department
This is-
personnel for
Is a
report?
department person here for this, for the mounted, or no? Yeah, here we go.
Lieutenant Lopez should be here.
This is relative to an agreement with Selective Equine Farrier Services provided for the Los Angeles Police Department's Metropolitan
Jeff, hold on,
Division
let's hear from the
Mounted
department.
Platoon.
Okay. Commissioner?
Morning.
Good morning.
So, could you explain why there was only one bid and what we did to encourage multiple bids?
Commissioner, we're Sergeant Brian Heaney. I'm one of the squad supervisors of Metro Mounted. We've used the same farrier for a number of years. It's been a reoccurring issue where he's done good work, and we haven't had any issue with the horseshoes or things that have happened, and we're just asking for a new contract.
Nancy Camarada, contract section of LAPD. We actually advertised this RFP online for the number of days, and we can't force people to respond. They just, they didn't show up.
How many days?
About 45.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
General Jeff, for the record. Speaking specifically to the Mounted Police Metro Division, as Metropolitan Division is in Central Division, which is in Skid Row. Now, in regards to the Mounted Police, the horses in Skid Row, years ago there was an issue with the horses patrolling on the sidewalks in Skid Row while the horses are defecating on the sidewalks and officers are not cleaning them up. And so, in essence, the officers were shitting on people's homes where people sleep, homeless people specifically. And so I brought that before this commission years ago, and the officers were delegated to and regulated to then patrol in the streets and only go onto the sidewalks when they were engaged in some type of contact with a potential suspect. Years ago, the Mounted Division went away from this policy, and they're back to shitting in the streets and shitting in Skid Row on the sidewalks, just leaving their decrement in the streets. And so that's not an asset to our community. Well, when I confronted Central Division, they basically say, oh, it's only hay and water. And basically saying that because it's the sun will, make it evaporate into the environment. That is not humane, especially in our community with Skid Row. And if the department isn't going to address that issue in regards to anything concerning with the Mounted Platoon, we ask that, we the people ask that you take that into consideration and make the necessary adjustments accordingly effective immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner, just so that we're clear, and I want to make sure the public has the most accurate information. Sergeant, can you address the issue of when horses, as part of their patrol duties, defecate? What are the actions of the mounted unit?
It's an action of every officer that's responsible for the horse, and if the horse does defecate either on the street or in a sidewalk or any position on a lawn, so forth, the officer makes every effort available to clean up that mess and then put it into a trash can.
So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have a motion for approval of item number 2E.
2F.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2F. Second? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. Next.
We're on item number 3, report of the Chief of Police, Chief Moore.
Morning, Chief.
Commissioners, good morning. And on behalf of Chief Charlie Beck, who, as Commissioner President Johnson indicated earlier, is away today attending the funeral of Detective Nadine Hernandez, I'm here to provide the Chief's report. As to significant instances and activities, Since this commission last met, I'd like to cover a couple issues, some of which, again, were covered by Commissioner Johnson in his opening remarks, so I'll be brief. First was the tragic tragedy of the funeral of 3 fallen officers here in the Southern California area. The attendance by Chief Beck, as well as members of the command staff and officers from the department, for Sergeant Steve Owens from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, as well as Officers Leslie Zerbini and Jose Gilbert Vega from Palm Springs. Those officers represent the total of 46 officers who have fallen by gunfire this year in the nation. The officers of the command, including Chief Beck, as was indicated in an earlier travel authority, also attended the IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and Major City Chiefs conference in San Diego approximately a week and a half ago. Our attendance there was to familiarize ourselves with the new and emerging strategies in policing. Public safety strategies are being engaged by our peers across this country, as well as across the world, as well as hear from our law enforcement leaders on the federal and state levels as to how efforts by their entities, by their span of control, can help improve public safety here in Los Angeles. I also want to report on an officer-involved shooting that occurred this past Sunday morning, and I'll read a prepared statement for that. The following information is very preliminary and subject to change as the investigation continues. On Sunday morning, October 23rd, at approximately 12:55 a.m., 2 uniformed police officers assigned to Northeast Area Gang Enforcement Detail were driving west on Sunset Boulevard, approaching Sutherland Street. The officers reported that they saw a large group of males involved in an altercation on the west sidewalk of Sutherland Street, just north of Sunset Boulevard. The officers stopped their marked police vehicle to investigate when they saw a male Hispanic armed, later identified as Andres Ramirez, a male Hispanic, 25 years of age, armed with a blue steel revolver. Mr. Ramirez pointed the gun at the group and then towards the officers, which resulted in an officer-involved shooting. Mr. Ramirez fled west on Sunset Boulevard, followed by the officers who chased him on foot. Mr. Ramirez ran through a gas station located on the northeast corner of Sunset and Portilla Street, where a second officer-involved shooting occurred. Mr. Ramirez was struck by gunfire and fell to the ground, where he was taken into custody without further incident. He was later transported by ambulance to University of Southern California, Los Angeles County Medical Center, where he underwent surgery and was later transferred to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, Twin Towers, in stable condition. A revolver was recovered at the gas station near where Mr. Ramirez was taken into custody. The preliminary investigation of the officer-involved shooting located at least 2 security videos that have captured at least portions of both officer-involved shootings. The investigation also determined that one of the males involved in the physical altercation was an off-duty LAPD officer who was not armed and did not identify himself as a police officer prior to or during the altercation. The suspect, Mr. Andres Ramirez, was booked for assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer and is currently in the custody of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Again, as I stated, this investigation is very early on. There's much more work to be done in collecting the facts of this. And, of course, the Inspector General, as well as the District Attorney's Office, responded that night as per their protocols and will conduct their oversight and separate investigation. And all this matter will be brought before this board, as is our officer-involved shooting protocols.
The officer that was involved in the altercation, the off-duty police officer. What happened to him?
Let's let the chief finish his report, sir.
What happened to him?
Let's let the chief finish.
I have no statement regarding the officer, the other officer that was, the off-duty officer that was there beyond what I've stated. Let me, at this point, talk about our crime statistics. Since we last met here, we've had a difficult couple weeks in regards to violent crime. Specifically, we've lost ground on our homicides and shooting victims. The commission will remember that on the 15th of October in the early morning hours in West Adams District, in a front neighborhood yard that was a underground, if you will, Jamaican restaurant of sorts, a shooting occurred in which 15 people were shot. 4 of those individuals were killed. The officers responded, attempted to render aid, as well as to attempt to identify those responsible. And while the organization, the department, has made 2 initial arrests, much more additional work is needed in determining who is responsible for this, and also mounting successful prosecution of those and bringing those to justice over this loss of life. In addition to those homicides this past week, we had a total of 11 homicides, and in those homicides, they're spread across various portions of the city and involve both family violence, a tragedy involving a 2-year-old child, for instance, that was stabbed by a male during a dispute, as well as a murder-suicide, and as well as gang violence, and in other matters, matters that we're still investigating to determine the underlying cause of the shootings. However, the department, as we've looked at these from an operations standpoint as well as across the organization, we believe our strategies that we have currently employed are still appropriate, are still relevant to impact the shooting violence and the loss of life. Year to date, where that leaves us is, as of this past Saturday, a 1.3% increase today in homicides, with 241 lost lives versus 238 the same period last year. Overall, our violent crime in the city remains at 10.6%, which is the 15th week of a reduction, if you will, from where our high was midsummer. However, still too much violence here in Los Angeles. Overall, we have a 5.6% increase in violent crime. I'm sorry, a 5.6% increase in total Part 1 crime. Our victims shot, again, last time we were here, we had substantially fewer, I believe in excess of 30 fewer shooting victims. Today, we're effectively 948 people have been shot in the city of Los Angeles versus last year, 949. So we are troubled by this these last 2 weeks, and we are, however, believing that our strategies of our added uniform crime suppression, our added investigative efforts will, and working in partnership with Gang Reduction Youth Development, the GRID program, and our community stakeholders, will be able to impact this. A couple other areas I want to report on, and that is on officer-involved shootings. As is customary of us to report, we've had a total of 23 officer-involved shootings year to date. Our 4-year average is just over 25. And last year, there were 33 officer-involved shootings with hits at this time, which is a 30% reduction. And moving toward the traffic collisions.
Let the chief finish his speech, please. Then you can fill out a card. Thanks.
Moving towards our traffic collisions, our hit and runs.
Last one.
We have a 16% increase in hit and runs involving serious injury or death. We have a 15% increase in serious injury or deaths of motor vehicles versus pedestrians. And the only bright spot in this is that we have a 15% reduction in bicyclist-involved collisions that involve serious injury or death. Moving over to our personnel statistics, we have 9,853 personnel on payroll. That's sworn personnel. There's 158 of those are in the academy. We're approximately 147 people short of our 10,000 sworn person goal for the department staffing. For our civilian staffing, we have 2,741 civilians, which still leaves us with more than 500 civilian vacancies. As for our reserves, specialist reserves, we have a total of 422 police reserves. We have 284 specialist reserves. We have 58 chaplains. And finally, we have 7,861 cadets. And, Commissioner, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the chief, commissioners? How many public comments do we have?
We have 11 public comment cards.
Okay.
Okay, we'll start with the first 4. We have Prentice Jenkins, Beth Kemp, Akili, and Paula Miner.
Morning, Mr. Jenkins.
Commissioner Soboroff, entire board, glad to be here, glad to see you. We're talking about, we had a pretty rough week last week for cops. It's a pretty rough week for residents too. I was troubled by what I heard today. You know, I'm the bridge. I like to say I'm the Martin Luther King, who was actually called sellout. Yeah, he was called a sellout, right? You're right. He's right. I'm no Martin Luther King, but I like to say that I'd like to try and do what he did, which has become a bridge. And in order to become a bridge, we have to be honest. And I'm shocked at what my colleague, Dr. Abdullah said. The video has gone missing of Waukesha Wilson. Is that true? If that's true, then it's important. It's virtually almost impossible for us actually create a bridge. Because we had video and there's no video anymore, what does that mean? So it's important that we find the video of what happened to Waukesha Wilson. If we don't find the video of what happened to Waukesha Wilson, then there could be no honest dialogue in this, in this situation. This city is ready to ignite. And if we don't do something about it, I'm one of the people that say, I want to do something about it. I don't want to yell at you. I don't want people yelling at me. It's all right, people can yell at me all they want, right? But I'm one of the people that actually want to do something about it, build a bridge, right? Build a bridge between the police and the community, because I like cops, and I like the community. I don't like bad cops. And it's important that we support the police.
Thank you, sir.
Beth Kemp.
Well, I don't like cops, and I don't want to build any bridges. I want to burn them down, because honestly, we need to put you all on an island somewhere to fight amongst yourselves, because that seems what should be done. You talk about this cop who was off duty, who was in this group of people. Was maybe he the one who started the problem to begin with? Was he spying on them? Was he not off duty? Was he actually undercover maybe? Oh no, wait, we don't have the right to that information, so we shall never know. You know, I have a serious problem with week after week you talk about crime statistics, but you don't talk about real solutions to preventing crime, like building community programs for the youth, like helping get unhoused people off the streets into real homes, like, you know, real things that could benefit the community versus criminalizing the community. And that's what seems the city of Los Angeles and Los Angeles Police Department is about. When you ask an officer on the street who you guys have trained, who's underneath you and Chief Beck and everybody else, you know, they don't know the laws. They claim it's our job to know the laws. Then what the fuck are they enforcing? Honestly, if they don't know the laws and they're not familiar with it after their whole 8 weeks of training, well, guess what? A lot of us, we've spent way more than 8 weeks in this room than they have in training, and that should be scary to you. You know, they're taught that we are the enemy. They're taught to be scared of us. They come out in the streets and they draw their guns and they put their hands on their pistols. And you say, oh, well, you know, if they feared for their lives, Jackie Lacey says if they fear for their lives, they have the right to shoot somebody. I'm 5'2" and I'm not afraid of somebody with a knife. I'm 5'2" and I'm not afraid of someone who's running away with me. And you know what? I'm not even afraid of someone with a gun, because I grew up in a place where people were trained to use guns. I've held a gun in my hand since I was old enough to stand, starting with BB guns, going hunting with my friends. You know, if the cops can't handle to de-escalate someone with a gun, they should look into a different position, like grocery bagging.
Akili, followed by Paula Miner.
Don't do anything or go anywhere. It's almost like we get here every Tuesday, we make points, and it doesn't matter. They just move right on. So I'm yielding my time.
At UC Irvine and at KPCC about those of us who attend these meetings. He attempted to tell the public that this group is not important. This group has no impact. This group only wants theater. This group is upset with every shooting. This group should not be believed. And so I think it's important for me to tell him that, because I don't think Chief Moore can respond for him. The other thing I would like to say is that we do come here over and over again, and we're trying to understand why no comments, why no questions, why no issues are responded to. You know, I want to just let this group know and get on record. I'll talk with Chief Beck further about it. An open letter was sent to the mayor and to the head of the Los Angeles City Council. And that open letter, I'll just read the first paragraph, said, prominent South Los Angeles community and labor leaders are calling for a state of emergency in Los Angeles and are urging Mayor Garcetti and the council to act with urgency to hold LAPD accountable and address the disproportionate use of lethal force on Black and Latino residents. and I'll talk about this further with Beck, but this particular document has been released. It has been delivered to the mayor and to the council, and it has been covered by the community newspapers, including the LA Sentinel and the LA Wave. So while we sit in here and get disregarded by the commission, the people's representatives, all across the city, not just this small group. This small group probably are the ones who can get here at 9:30 in the morning to police headquarters. But this is a citywide issue, and you guys minimize it and try to make us seem insignificant, and it's wrong.
Thank
and
you.
I
Next
also
speaker,
want to
please.
say,
Next speaker.
say her name,
George
Waukesha Wilson.
George Bassetti, followed by Trevor Gerard and Michael Novick.
I know you all hate me. And you, sir. I got jail for you. Listen close, everybody. Go on your cell phones, on your computer. George Bazzetti -YouTube. BUZZETTI. Go to video, police video, LAFA 7C. 7C. That's the 5/5/15 Police Commission meeting, Dudios. Oh, gee, you erased it off your videos. Only you forgot I'm good. I pulled it down. You erased the audio. Dudes, prison, PC-132. Erase or change a government document. Felony with no statute of limitations. I see two of you missing here. You obviously got the message from last night. Or did you? Did Mr. Bustamante give it to you?
Hey, George, do you have any comments on the report?
Yeah, I do, dude. You're going to jail.
Thanks. Next speaker.
And you are not obeying the 2003 DOJ agreement with the help of the DOJ. I have the proof. You messed with the wrong person when you tried to kill me, suckers.
Trevor Gerard.
Eat that one. Go on your cell phone.
Morning, sir.
So the free man does not ask for justice, he takes it. The free woman or trans person or non-gender conforming person does not bargain for their life. They assert their right not only to exist, but to resist. And that's what we're doing here. We are resisting. We are resisting the bullshit narrative that you can reform a system which is fundamentally broken in the first place. We're resisting the narrative that is also highly racialized and is a dog whistle that we perform theater, or that we're more interested in making provocative statements than actually engaging in real dialogue. So before I was thrown out the last time, I was talking about the fact that Matt Johnson, in the little PR campaign that you all have been doing, let go in a meeting at NAN that the mayor has no disciplinary power over the police, that the commission has no disciplinary power over the police, and Charlie Beck himself is light on discipline, but also he cannot actually fire anybody. Then what goes to the league, and they're the ones who can actually administer any sort of actual discipline. So it's a zero accountability culture. And this whole thing, you've been put here, right, to contain us so that we're not actually out in the streets starting the fire. So this,
how this has to do with the topic of the report of the chief of police.
Right. Well, I'm getting there.
I'm trying.
Right. Well, I'm getting there. Okay. So Charlie Beck, in his talk at UC Irvine, said that it was unreasonable to police a violent city without the use of weaponry, something like this. This place is the violence.
Okay, sir.
The LAPD
Thank
is the violence.
You can sign up for a public comment too.
You're the ones rolling through the streets in tanks.
Next.
Assassinating people, engaging in witness intimidation.
Come back for public comment. Seriously. Thank you.
The next speaker, Michael Novick, Billy Davenport, and General Jeff.
Morning again. I'm with White People for Black Lives. We're here in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. Earlier, Akili said that it seems like nothing we do here matters, but I think it does. And I think that it's our job to get into your heads and under your skin. I heard the Assistant Chief of Police here basically say that the LAPD is completely useless and futile in stopping crime and reducing violence in the city. The best they can brag about is that they've reduced the rate of increase in violent and other types of crimes. People are being killed and they can do nothing to stop it. So I think that it's your job as a police commission to deal with that, to question that, to question the whole nature of policing that goes on in the city when all the police can do is contribute to the violence and the killings and the shootings that take place. Apparently there was an incident in which an off-duty officer was involved in an altercation that resulted in 2 officer-involved shootings. The person probably is alive only by the grace of God. I note that this report was a 2-week report because you didn't meet last week, and 2 weeks ago I couldn't come because it was the Jewish Day of Atonement. And when you try to do atonement for things that you did wrong, you have to start by first acknowledging that you've done wrong. You name the crimes and the sins that you've committed, and then you make a commitment to stop committing them. Malcolm X said that you don't thank a person for pulling a knife halfway out of your back. So I think that this police commission needs to start by directing the LAPD to acknowledge its crimes and acknowledge what it's doing wrong, and then figure out a strategy for having different kind of policing in the city. And you need to start with yourselves and having a different kind of police commission in the city, because you're not doing your job. You're not holding these people to account. You're not responding to the community. You're not acting as if we matter or the lives of the people that have been taken matter, and that's on you.
Billy Davenport, General Jeff, Michael Williams.
A lot of us come here every week because we care about our communities, and it's a shame to see how much the commission doesn't care about us, and then we have to hear the statistics that we have to hear coming from the chief. And every sign up here says something about the people, something about the community, but it doesn't seem like the people or the community matter. And it's not only relevant in this meeting, it's irrelevant. I mean, you can see it in the police that are outside patrolling. Like, they don't care about the people of the community. They haven't been taught to be people persons. Of course, they're taught to be tacticians and how to hold weaponry and all of that. But how many of them are actually trained to deal with the community and people of the community? I've been in this community since 1973, and as a child, 9 years old, I was being picked on by the police. I was a little fat kid, the little police officers would come to the neighborhood and tell me to run around the corner. And if I stopped, they take me to jail. These are the kind of police officers. And I'm not talking about just now. This has been happening for years and hundreds of years, maybe, I would like to say. But at some point, maybe once the police and maybe once this commission starts being more about the people in the community and actually listening to some positive people that have some things to say, then maybe we could change some of these statistics, and maybe police wouldn't have to use as much force as they use on us.
Next speaker, please.
General Jeff, followed by Michael Williams and Ruth Sarnoff.
General Jeff from Skid Row. Because there's a question in regards to whether we, the people, are capable of being on topic, I will speak to each one of these bullet points. The first one, in terms of this past week, what's been ongoing, and I speak specifically to Skid Row. San Julian Park and Skid Row, Central Division deploys officers to this park, and they would just leave them like just sitting in the park or standing in the park all day long. I was told by previous captains of Central Division that officers could not just stand in place for longer than 30 minutes because then it could be assumed that it's a potentially total waste of taxpayer dollars. For the officers just to sit around the park, that's not it's not helping the situation when they're not doing anything. They're just standing there. They're not talking to the community. There's no positive programming. They're not contributing to anything going on in the park. They're just wasting, just taxpayer dollars getting a free check. Point number 2, when you talk about crime statistics, we the people are still not comfortable and satisfied with the department's presentation on crime stats. Going back to last year, LA Times had a report that the department was caught wrongfully classifying crime stats, specifically violent crimes. And so we're still not satisfied that that situation has been rectified, and we need that this commission needs to look into that a little bit more to reassure the public, we the people, that something has been modified and improved. In terms of bullet point number 3, reassignment of officers in Skid Row, the officer that was involved in killing Brother Africa, Officer Martinez, still patrols in our streets. That's disrespectful. And in terms of personnel strength, there's a whole lot of officers that are out of shape and need to be in better shape if they're going to be out here patrolling our streets. Personnel strength. Thank you.
Michael Williams.
So let's talk about that shooting in Palm Springs, right? Here you have a guy that has a modified rifle, body armor, kills 2 police officers, and somehow makes it to trial to plead not guilty. While Carnell Snell, Kenny Watkins, Richard Ridger, Keith Bursey, Charlie Africa, Waddell Jones, Ezell Ford, Waukesha Wilson can't make it to their trial. Can't make it to their trial because they get shot. I had Carnell Snell. That's so. How is that possible for Palm Springs to take down a armed person who had just killed 2 police officers? But you guys can't take down a 18-year-old kid without shooting him. You can't do that. So that's the point, right? Is that you keep coming up with this narrative that, okay, because they're violent, right, because they're resisting, because they have a gun, because they have a knife or some other weapon, it is impossible for you to take them in custody alive. Where we see time and time after again, we see it across seas, in other countries, we see it in other police forces, we see it when the suspect is not black or Latino, we see it in many cases that you have the capacity and the ability to take people into custody without murdering them. So stop the bullshit, stop the lies about you throwing out violent crime statistics about how many people got killed, because that's your fault. Because you take resources, you drain the resources from the communities that need them. So that's on you. And Chief Charlie Beck, which is why he needs to be fired. So let's stop the games. You guys can take people in without murdering them. You guys know you can. It's just you don't give a damn about black people, and you don't give a damn about black people's lives.
The next speaker is Ruth Sarnoff, followed by Melina Abdullah and Hamid Khan.
Ruth Sarnoff. I want to speak to the issue of the reinstatement and reassignment of officers. I don't have the exact article that have covered it with me today, but I know that there have been 2 shootings by the same officer within a period about 2 weeks. And what comes to my mind is, what is an investigation, or what is a review? Or what do these things mean when an officer who shoots somebody still has his gun, is out on active duty and shoots and kills another person and it's not on your agenda today? I mean, come on. We have a lot of things to deal with here. I have been in Los Angeles since 1945, since the time when there were signs on the lawns, no Mexicans or dogs, and everything was segregated in this town way later than the 40s. It was the 40s, it was the 50s, and it was on into some of the 60s when the theaters in downtown Los Angeles, black people had to sit in the balcony. Come on. There's a long history of racism, and there's a long history of racism in the police department. You can go back to the Sleepy Lagoon case. You can go back to the bricks through the windows as people tried to get housing. The discrimination all the way through the period when white people were getting loans, federal loans, and buying homes, and nobody else could buy a home. Is it any... it's no mystery to why the housing crisis is what it is today, because you're running more people into homelessness than you're taking out of homelessness by the policies of the city and of the county.
Thank you,
and
Ms.
so
Sarnoff.
It's very difficult.
Next speaker,
right
please.
Melinda Abdullah,
Not here.
not present. Hamid Khan.
Is this the last speaker?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This
This
is,
isn't
we're
public
not on
comment.
public comment yet, sir.
I just got just a logistical question. There was a woman sitting here from the department. Was she using facial recognition technology?
No, she's
backwards?
using social media, which
Okay.
technically, yes.
So because she had all those two cameras pointed backwards on this side, so I just want to make sure and just put it on record. All right, cool. Okay, so on March 1, Charlie Africa was murdered, and Shane Goldsmith, I'm going to just look at you and share this story with you. In 2015, on March 1st, Charlie Africa, a unhoused man, was murdered when 5 officers pulled up and pulled guns, and he was shot 6 times. This year, on October 14th, an incident happened on Gladys and 6th Street in Skid Row, where there was a disagreement between a resident and someone across the street on where trash should be put, something very basic. It ended up in 12 patrol cars showing up, at least 8 to 12 patrol cars, completely putting the community under siege, each one of them coming out with their shotguns and guns cocked, including beanbags and everything else, pointing towards the community, and their revolvers out, and everything, as you can see, like an occupying army showing up. Now remember, this is a man living in a tent who had a disagreement about where trash should be put because the city has failed in hauling trash. The point here being that the community intervened, and about 12 community members created a wall of defending this community member and kept the cops away from that. This is happening on the street, and this will not stop. Because the community, after what happened with Charlie Africa and continues to happen in Oconio, is now going to defend itself.
Can you relate this at all to the...
I can
report
relate
of
it to the chief
of police?
because the chief did not share that in his report, because we haven't had a meeting since October 11th. The chief failed to say that the community was put under siege. Michael Moore failed to say that 8 to 12 patrol cars were there with guns cocked, pointing towards a man who's living in a tent, and the only issue was there was a disagreement. Michael Moore failed to say in his report that they were claiming that he had a knife and the community had formed a defensive wall against them. No knife at all.
Okay,
So
next...
this is where this is going.
Next.
This is, you keep on interfering me, Sobroff. I still have time. This is
No,
where
you
this
don't.
is going. The community
So
is
are we on
going
a
to
public
defend
comment now?
itself.
We're
There's
now
no
on item
garbage
number
about
4,
fringe
public
and
comment.
people out
We
there.
have 21
We're gonna
public
keep on
comment
coming
cards,
back,
sir.
and we will hold you
21.
responsible.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
We'll start with the first 5, sir. For public comment, the first 5 cards are Prentice Jenkins.
I want to see how many are here so we can make a determination whether there'll be 1 minute or 2 minutes. You want to... How many people here have signed up for public comment? 1, 2... Have you really signed up? You put cards in for public comment.
No, we're just joking. We just like to raise our hands.
You can sit down.
You can act a little bit better.
Okay, we can go to We'll go to 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, the first
Mr.
five:
Jenkins?
Prentice Jenkins, Beth Kemp, Akili, Paula Miner, and Joseph Azriel.
Prentice Jenkins, publisher, City Life newsletter, activist since 1991. You know, in February of 1992, we were at the mayor's office, Mayor Bradley's office, telling him that something's going to happen in the city. But we presented a proposal to the mayor to create jobs for young people. Well, his deputy chief, he was polite, and after the meeting, we heard nothing from him. That was February of 92. April of 92, the city burned. Guess who called us back after that? The mayor's office. See, essentially people want to wait until this thing gets out of control. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's my belief that you cut it off at the roots, at its roots. And when people ask, are they down? Yes, I'm down with the activists. I'm down with Steve Soboroff. I'm down with the president, President Johnson. I'm down with the board. I'm down with the police. I'm the bridge. Somebody's got to be the bridge. I decided I'd be the bridge. That's what happens when you hear you won't believe how many times Martin Luther King heard that. What the hell are you talking about? We want to burn this place. But that man was the bridge. He tried to stop the burning. You see, the reality is this, that actually I've become such a huge, what I call myself a bridge. Everybody else may call me something else, but ain't nothing I ain't been called before. That is my GoFundMe page. I decided somebody's got to do something about it. You want to do something about it? Google Prentice Jenkins, Prentiss Jenkins. Go to my GoFundMe page, Peace Between Residents and Police.
Thank you, sir.
Beth Kemp.
Well, I'm not a bridge. I'm not here to be walked on. But it seems that this board is walking all over us. This board is supposed to be a neutral board, yet every time it sides with the police with no questions asked. Why is that? Are you all intimidated by LAPD like we are? Well, I'm sick of being intimidated, and what Hamed just spoke about with the man on Skid Row, that was what I spoke about earlier. And I was one of those people who stood in front of the guns, who stood in front of the 30 cops with their hands on their real guns, not just their less lethals. They were ready to hurt him, if not kill him. They were demanding we get out of the way. They shoved a 5-foot woman back 5 feet, screaming, "I'm going to arrest you." It was the women standing in front of this man. No, the man was not a person of color. He was actually white. But the person who called it in was an officer. I don't know if he disclosed that when he called it into 911, but you should look at the phone call saying he had a knife because he was standing in the middle of the street yelling at the officer with an LAPD sucks sign. I was standing in front of him, and the other woman was standing behind him, making sure he did not get hit by a car. You know, if the community is willing to stand up for one of another, we can take care of one of another. 54 days at City Hall, we didn't need the cops for anything. 60 days at City Hall with Occupy LA, again, we didn't need the cops for anything. So that's just proof that the community can handle themselves, and we don't need armed thugs coming into our communities, and we certainly don't need a board of apologists saying what they do is right. We need someone to hold all of you accountable. And if this, you know, they say protesting in the streets isn't the way, go to meetings. I've been coming to these meetings now for a couple months where people here have been coming for years. Why didn't I come? Because I don't think they're effective. I videotaped this to prove that they're not effective. What other higher body do we have? The Attorney General says we're not the public and we're not allowed into her meetings. You know, so what higher body do we have if the district attorney's office isn't doing anything? The Attorney General's office isn't doing anything. Do we have to go back to the feds? Do we have to go back to LAPD being under federal control yet again?
The next speaker is Akili.
I yielded the last time, and that I did that out of a sense of frustration. But our presence here has made a difference. Us being here on Tuesday has made a difference. us being here and making these points has made a difference. So I wanted to come and end my sense of frustration. And I remember my friend Tom Hayden, who I had known for over 45 years, and remembered that his inside and outside position. I also want to say to our friends from the Police Commission, I am in fact a professional organizer and activist. You make reference to us as if we are somehow outsiders. You make reference to us like the Citizens Council made to King and others during that time. So I want to stand up and say to you, yes, for the past 45 years, I have been a professional activist and organizer fighting for social justice and racial justice. So when you make reference to me and us in your letters about what needs to be done, we are real, and our positions are real. I want to talk specifically about something that was raised here a number of times before, because our respect and trust is at a very low level. 1,300 complaints were registered, none with merit. We have brought this to you before. There are some simple things we think you should do. One, take the complaint system out of the police force, put it in CBOs and community-based organizations. Two, have civilians do it. And three, create an app, and it's an easy thing to do, so that I and others can simply go on our phones or use our computers to file the complaints. And maybe the number of complaints will go up. I'm almost certain they will. And maybe some of them will be found with merit. Maybe. Thank you.
Paula Miner.
Just a sec. Inspector General, do you want to talk about your app for a second? Why not? Okay, I'm sorry, you can't on the. Well, go on and look at it if you want. Okay, next.
Paula Miner, followed by Joseph Azriel.
Okay.
And Jerry Dietrich.
Sorry.
Yeah, at some point we would like to hear about the app. You know it's out there, and it's easy to do. It's already out there. But the thing I wanted to comment on is the activities that happened at the last meeting. And I'm so sorry again that Matt Johnson is not here to hear them. But at the last meeting, there was disruption by some people, not by all. At the last meeting. Okay. At the last meeting, the room was full. Everyone was asked to leave when the disruption occurred, and then when the commission decided to resume meeting, they cited the California Code 54957.9, which, of course, was, we had to look it up, and we also, read it. And we know that it's open to interpretation. While it does say that a public body can stop a meeting if it has been disrupted by a group or individual, at the end of it, it says, and this is in your discretion, nothing in this section shall prohibit that legislative body or community group, which is you guys, from establishing a procedure for readmitting any individual or individuals not responsible for willfully disturbing the orderly conduct of the meeting. So again, our illustrious community police board, who has the interests of the community at heart, decided to ignore the last sentence in that particular code, because on that day there were at least 10 of us, including myself, who waited outside to be readmitted based on this particular code. And again, you talk about the distrust. You talk about why things happen the way they happen. And repeatedly, these are examples of how you as a commission respond to the community and how then we interpret it. If we get upset and our reaction is emotional, you criminalize how we behave. You say it's theatrics. But I think you need to think about the role you're presenting and not use discretion irresponsibly.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Joseph Azriel, Jerry Dietrich, and Robert Cortez.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Joseph Azriel. With all due respect to my fellow Angelenos expressing their First Amendment rights, I'm here on a slightly different matter. I'm here to present 2 letters of commendation for 2 outstanding Southwest police officers. If you would please hand this over to the Deputy Chief. The first person is Senior Lead Patricia Luvanos. North University Park, we had an ongoing issue with an overabundance of RVs taking over our community and affecting businesses in terms of parking, limited parking. And a lot of the RVs were causing issues with trash and so on and so forth. So like a play, our Daisy Machina was Patricia Luvanos. She was able to resolve that. And the way she went about it, she was able to get 3 council-mounted districts to come together and interact with each other. And she successfully was able to get a resolution passed. And we now have limited parking, and the community is very, very grateful for that. And the other one is from my neighbor, Alma Douglas. She's a retired British consulate, and she's like 85, and she's been having issues with a rambunctious group of USC students. Senior Lead Paul Avleth was the acting SLO for that particular area while Patricia Luvanos was away. He single-handedly, like a small-town sheriff, addressed our problems. And we do have major problems within North University Park. And I was very impressed with his manner of professionalism, returning calls, returning emails, introducing neighbors who never met each other. So I'm just very, very proud that I had that person. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Thank you very much.
Jerry Dietrich, followed by Robert Cortez and Eddie H.
Hello, my name is Jerry Dietrich, and I'm sorry, I'm with Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. I want to talk about a couple things. I was really excited when I got here and saw the barricades were gone. I was so happy, and I thought things would be different. But then I got over here, and they all said, no, you can't come this way, you got to go that way. Finally, they started letting people in at 9:09, and they said only 10 people at a time. Anyhow, the Brown Act says they're supposed to let us in at 9 o'clock. And to me, it's like, okay, they let you in way down here, and they let you walk around. By the time you get around, it's 9:15. I mean, it's ridiculous, this thing. They should start letting us in earlier. Secondly, there are not enough agendas at the meetings. And a lot of times, there's no reports. I don't know who told you there was reports back there, but there's no reports, and the agendas are never here on time. I've complained about these things to Commissioner Hill, who said she cannot do anything. But I really don't think so. I mean, I hate to say I'm talking about somebody when I'm not talking to. I would like to say to her, I really think you guys could do something. And I'm not putting her down by saying she couldn't. What she said was she can't control what's going on outside. So I honestly feel she could. But anyhow, the agendas are not outside, so we're not even talking about that issue anymore. The agendas and the reports have got to be back at back of the room earlier so we can come in and read them. We don't have time to read them. Oh, yeah, by the way, get rid of Beck.
Robert Cortez, not present. Eddie H.
Eddie H., the Los Angeles Community Action Network. There's a lot of things said today, and there's a lot of non-reaction on behalf of you guys. Ms. Goldsmith, I caught your interview with Dominic DePrima about a month ago. And when I heard that interview, I knew nothing about you, basically, but I was sort of thinking that you were going to be different. As my dear sister Marlena Abdullah said earlier, you've been a thorough disappointment. And I just want to let you know one thing about us who come here week after week. We don't think highly of disappointments. You're just a number in a long line of individuals who've sat on that side of the dais and literally has been non-existent in action and in voice. It was once said that you would know strength and the weaknesses of your adversary by their level of engagement. And this body does not engage in no way, shape, form, or fashion. So you're operating from a point of weakness. And we're here to speak power, truth to that weakness, week in and week out. For we know basically that nothing is being done in the sense that you guys give us week after week that you're not going to do anything. But let me just say one thing. We are not going to cower down. We're not going to be emasculated. We're not going to bow down to massa. But what we are going to do, we're going to be ever vigilant, we're going to be strong, powerful, and we're going to be united in our continued fight for justice in this unjust system. For it is a system, as people have said today, that allows individuals to be slaughtered like animals in the streets. For the same things that happened in L.A. in the city of LA does not happen in Beverly Hills and Brentwood. So it's not about policy. It is not about training. For the same training that those individuals get is the same training that police officers that occupy our communities get. But you don't get the same results. So we're saying now, end to the systemic racism that is prevalent and inherent in everything that is done and said. And I just want to say to you, Mr. Bustamante, last year I was in a meeting at the Newton Division where the captain of the use of force division was there. And I questioned him
Next
on how
speaker,
use
please.
of force is meted out. And he says from a subjective
Who's the
and
next speaker?
objective point of view. And we know when it's subjective to people of color.
Robert
and we're
Cortez.
saying right now,
Robert
no
Cortez.
more, no more,
Robert.
no more. Ms. Goldsmith, you on notice. Stand up and stand apart.
Come on up.
Robert Cortez, please.
My name is Robert Cortez. I've actually been here once before last year of August to bring to your attention my situation, and I'm here now to show how ridiculous it has all become due to one officer and his unprofessionalism. It all has to do with one of your LAPD officers by the name of Bavians, badge number 38880. And I've been fighting against this corrupt justice system at the Van Nuys courthouse because of his officer and his unlawful citation he's given me. I've also been fighting because he has lied and left out crucial information under oath, committing perjury, which is not taken lightly if a citizen does so, but absolutely nothing is done if an officer does. I would strongly recommend doing something about this unjust situation, this corrupt officer, and his complete disregard for upholding the law. I have now also been called to do two different cases by the public defender in Van Nuys about this very same officer and his unorthodox behavior to others, and I am here to help any and others, all others who are dealing with this unlawful officer as well. And I'd also like to say crimes by police officers undermine the trust between police and the community, a trust that is essential to effective law enforcement. Those who are entrusted by the law with the power to arrest people and use force against them who resist have a special duty to avoid abusing that authority. There is no great epidemic of violence targeting police officers, and when such violence does actually happen, the authorities take it very seriously indeed. But sadly, the very opposite tends to be true of violent behavior by police themselves. Over the last several decades, many police departments have increasingly adopted dangerous military-style tactics, which have often led to indefensible violence against civilians. When such abusive behavior occurs, the perpetrators are rarely punished, a state of affairs that creates a culture of impunity. And so please remember that the credibility of an officer willing to lie under oath should not overshadow the credibility of a concerned citizen.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Cortez, have you made a complaint with the department regarding this?
Yes, I have plenty of different ones.
With the department, a personnel
Yes,
complaint?
with the department, with internal affairs.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next four speakers, George Bazzetti, Michael Novick, Tiffany Guerra, and Joy T. Chand.
Is that the last?
No, sir. We still have...
George Bazzetti, former director of policy, Cork, California. Mr. Soboroff, I'm getting ready to bring back all your history on you because we saved all our docks, dude. Do you remember air conditioners, dude? And you and Mr. Fuhrer making some false accusations against a friend of mine? Well, we saved it all, dude. And now, all of you here, I understand your frustration. I was just down at Anaheim in the police protest and videoed it all. You can go watch it at George Bazzetti YouTube. And these people committing felonies, PC 132, and they erased the 5-5-15 meeting audio. I have both versions. Gee. So if you really want to stop these guys, stop them where you're going to resign. We're going to have you arrested and convicted. If they can do to Sheriff Baca what they did, right? And he turned evidence and helped them. And even Mafia Dons, they don't break their plea agreements, do they? Now, maybe some of you don't like Sheriff Baca, but I worked for 8 years with him to fix law enforcement. We warned him. He screwed up. He pled. He did the right thing, and they backstabbed him. How about you, lawbreakers, and you, Malachi? Remember, you took my fake complaint, and Bustamante, go look, I have the signed complaints. I have no complaint number. They're lawbreakers. So let's take them down with the law. And look, all this phony press is in here. So tonight, you can go watch this meeting at George Bazzetti YouTube, because I record everything, Soberov. And guess who helped hack my computer at LAUSD? Michelle King on video. And it's recorded in the jail, me saving a man from being killed by you fools. Video.
Okay, have a good day.
Michael Novick.
I'll put you in the pokey, babe. It's called legal payback. You want to kill people? We just want you in the pokey. I'm down with that.
I want to comment again on the fact that Ruth spoke to earlier. You have not just a killer cop, but a serial killer cop, an officer who shot somebody dead and 12 days later shot somebody else dead, and you're doing nothing about it. And so I think it's clear that in terms of the fundamental changes that have to take place, the LAPD functions as an occupying army in communities of color and an internal border guard and in privileged areas to keep people out of those areas, and you're doing nothing about it. So the only fundamental change you guys can make is a fundamental change in the police commission, because you obviously have no capacity to make a change in the police department. And the fundamental change you have to make in the police commission is you have to stop having these meetings here. I read Mr. Tiefang's letter, citing all the articles under which you have the right to kick everybody out and meet privately. But what you have to do, and starting with any member of this commission, Matt who's not here, the other people not here, or Mr. Soberov, is you have to say, we're not going to meet with a fortress mentality and acting as if we're being attacked by people with pitchforks and torches. We have to go out into the community. You have to meet on the weekend. You have to meet at night. You have to be open to the community showing up without having to run a gauntlet of police officers and being surrounded by police officers that say anything they want to. Come out to the community and meet with the community in the community, and then you can start doing your job. Face the reality. This is a city that is being oppressed and suppressed, and people are being murdered by the police department, and the community is angry about that. Face that anger and deal with it. You're not going to do it here. You think you only have a few people here and you can dismiss them? That's on you, because you're meeting at 9:30 in the morning on a weekday inside the LAPD headquarters. If you want to have masses of people come out to talk to you and tell you what they really think, then you have to go to them. You have to get out of this building and have your meetings on the weekend or at night in community organizations and churches.
Tiffany Guerra, followed by Doi T. Chan.
So my comment is to this board and this group regarding the consistent misuse of power of this board when it comes to shutting out the public. One of the purposes of this commission meeting is to provide a forum where the public can come and voice our opinion on the agenda items being considered, and that is a very critical part of the process. When you deny people the right to do that, you're violating the rules of democracy and engaging in deception. You all do this consistently, most recently in the meeting on the 11th when Matt Johnson threatened the entire room with shutting down the meeting when a few people were talking back. He would threaten to adjourn the meeting and say, "It's your decision." He would say that to the room, which is a lie because it's not. It was very clearly his decision to do that, and so that is an abuse of power as well. When you have disruptions in your meetings, you are obligated to ask that individual or individuals to leave. But you all did not do that. You did that for one person, and then when there were further disruptions with another individual, you did not ask that person to leave, but Matt just shut down the whole meeting. This is a public forum. When you skip steps in shutting down that process and then keep the public out when you come back in session, knowingly with only the media present, as the public outside is told that they can't come in, that is not just lazy, but it is willful deception. You kept the public out when you passed agenda items that you knew were important to the public on that day, and you knew that because you had numerous comment cards on all of those items. So you knew how important it was for members of the public to speak on those items, and you shut us out specifically anyway. So maybe you all need different jobs than being on this panel, because what we need here are people that are willing and able to run a public meeting and who respect that process and who have taken, and you respect the fact that we have taken hours out of our day to come here. Some people have to travel all day to be here and then stand here and speak to you all for 2 minutes. You need to respect that process or find a different job.
Joy T. Chand. And we have 9 other cards, sir.
How many?
9 more.
First of all, my name, you mispronounced it. It's Jyoti Chand. Second, what's that? Jyoti Chand. It's an Indian name. Second, each of you have blood on your hands. You have the blood of little children. You have the blood of women of color, of mothers, daughters, sons, husbands, fathers, and elders. You should be punished. You should be charged with state-sanctioned violence, terror and terrorism, and attempted genocide. That is what we're talking about. Also, I want to put on notice that actually you all violated California Code 54957.9 on October 11th. Rather than taking out one individual, you took out everybody. That's the first violation of that. Second, you made no attempt to include the public that was not disrupting the meeting. So you're in violation of this. Third, you're painting a picture of us, right? You're painting a picture of us that we're disruptive, we're interrupting, that we're loud. And actually, the words that you should be using is really how you feel, which is that you think we're uncivilized, right? Savages, thugs, black and brown people. You should say what you mean. And the way that you're categorizing disruption is actually a normal response to trauma. I work with trauma victims. I work in a shelter program with domestic violence, sexual assault survivors. What we're experiencing is a normal, healthy response to trauma. Rage, anger, speaking up, using our voice, taking up space. That is a normal response to trauma.
Call the next group.
The next 5, Trevor Gerard, Karen Hilfman, Jamie Garcia, Ruth Sarnoff, and Melina Abdullah.
Go ahead. Who's next?
I'm still talking. I'm still talking.
Can't do that. So you don't want to
There's a report, actually. There's a report. It was
So
a
I'm
UN
going to ask you to sit
report.
down now.
And this report, it came out in September of this year.
Remember, you're
And
doing
it
this to yourself. I'm not doing it
on
to you.
what you are doing, that contemporary police killings and the trauma
It's your
that
last
they
warning.
face are reminiscent of the past racial terror of
Okay, you can
lynching.
sit down now. If you can't sit
In
down, I'm going to ask you to
particular,
leave.
The legacy
So you
of
want to leave?
colonial history, enslavement, racial subordination and segregation,
Last
racial
warning.
racism, and racial inequality in the United States.
Okay, you
remains
can
a
leave.
serious challenge,
You're done.
as there's
Next.
been no real commitment
Sir,
to
are you going to? Are you waiving your
truth
speak?
and
Speaking?
reconciliation for the people of African
Ms.
No, you're
Chand,
not.
your time is up. Joe T.
Unity for state violence.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recess this
current
meeting,
human rights
and we'll do the
crisis
same. No, it's not me.
must be
It's
addressed
not me. It's her.
As a matter of urgency. You all should be tried.
You ask her to stop.
for attempted genocide.
You can go out.
Thank you.
She's done. Okay, and he's done. Next. Okay, who's next?
Karen Hilfman.
Who's up?
Karen Hilfman.
Yeah, I asked you to leave the meeting. Go ahead. Thank you.
Karen
Next speaker.
Hilfman, followed by Jamie Garcia.
Thank you. Have a good day. Next.
Ms. Hilfman, please.
Okay. Sorry.
Karen Hilfman, White People for Black Lives. I want to talk a little bit also about who the public is. And according to the police rank and file, and this was reported in the LA Times, The public here are protesters in search of a problem. And if the rank and file isn't aware that there is a problem, that is a problem. Organizational change starts at the top, and shame on Chief Beck, and shame on you all for not communicating and making sure that the force understands the critical issues facing them. But it's not surprising, really, because you don't recognize the problem either. There are many ways to describe it, but I'll just say for right now, disproportionate use of force, lethal force, intimidation, harassment in the black and brown communities of Los Angeles. And this commission continues to ignore what's being said and what's right in front of you. Also, in regard to the public who's here, it's not theater either, and I know a couple of other people have spoken about this, but in the letter to the mayor and the city council that Paula Miner mentioned, there also was results of a poll. And in South Los Angeles, residents, and this poll was conducted by the well-respected Community Coalition, showed that 69% of the respondents say their confidence in the LAPD has decreased over the last 3 years, that 75% believe officers should avoid using deadly force even if the suspect is armed. So this isn't theater, it's the tip of the iceberg.
Thank you.
And you can't continue to keep the public at arm's length.
The next speaker, Jamie Garcia, followed by Ruth Sarnoff and Melina Abdullah.
Ms. Jamie Garcia is not here. Ruth Sarnoff?
My name is Ruth Sarnoff. I was real disturbed when I listened to the earlier testimony, and I had a card in on number 2, but it was obviously, unless you get it in before anybody speaks on that subject,
right,
which is like, could be 30 minutes earlier, you can't speak. I can't see any reason for that in the County Board of Supervisors. If your card is in there while we're still on the topic, they call you. It's a matter of choice. If you really want to hear more from us, you'll be lenient. If you want to hear less from us, you will be less lenient. I want to tell you, I have personally seen the damage of tasers and of those pellet guns that shoot bags and, I don't know, bullets, whatever they are, both at the arrest scene in the Occupy Los Angeles when 1,400 police officers converged on the site after having pushed people and harassed people till there was actually, outside of the people to be arrested, there were very few people on the site anymore. We had helicopters groaning over the top of the village there around LA City Hall for days before. And I saw them use the pellet gun on the guy up in the tree. We watched there, and there was no reason to bring him down at all except to make everybody that had been sitting there in the cold waiting to be arrested. And I was one of those people. I spent 3 days in the county jail, and it was not fun, I can assure you. And I would also like to speak at another time with someone here, if I may, about watching a person be tasered in South Los Angeles.
Thank you.
And it was horrible. It was a horrible experience.
Our next speaker, Melina Abdullah, not present. Pastor Q, Jan Marie. Pastor Q, followed by Michael Williams, Hamid Khan, and General Jeff.
And that's it?
And that's it.
Okay.
We're not on that item yet.
Pastor Q, the Church Without Walls, Skid Row, Black Jewish Justice Alliance, Creating Justice, LA. Last week at a meeting, DA Jackie Lacey said that if a police officer feels like their lives are in danger, whether they're mistaken or not, they have a right to protect themselves. I'm a big black man. That scares the heck out of me. Because a police officer can come into our occupied neighborhoods and say anything and kill a black man and get away with it, which is what's been happening. We talk about community policing, but when you go to Irvine and you begin to say things about our community to white and Asian people that don't live in our communities, we have a problem with that. You're painting us in a particular light. Do that at your dinner table, not out in public. And this is the same attitude we've had in Skid Row when Charlie Africa was killed, whether you thought the police was right or wrong. When no one came to Skid Row to talk to us, the rowdy ones, the ones who were screaming, the ones who came in protest, when no one came, when we went to the mayor's office and no one came to talk to us, but you go to the other side of town and talk to some black folks over there. That's like a woman getting raped. And then you go to another woman to hear her opinion about that woman's rape.
Michael Williams. Followed by Hamid Khan.
Those are the last two.
General Jeff, and that's it.
Okay.
Okay. The hottest place in hell is reserved for those who remain neutral in times of great moral conflict. Who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it. Martin Luther King. So I'm saying that because it seems like the neutrality on here is pretty obvious. And it's not neutral for you guys. That was a comment to Miss Shane Goldsmith and my brother back here. That's basic, but you guys' neutrality is very not, you guys are not neutral at all. It's obvious that you're on the side of police officers. It's obvious that you're on the side of the oppressor, of evil, cooperating with it. That's obvious. So I was going to shut down the meeting because I really don't care about it, but I have respect for people, right? I have respect for the mother of Waukesha Wilson, who wanted to ask you, Mr. Bustamante, that because of the fact that you said, right, and if you want to disagree with it, we have a video of you saying this, right, that you said that the investigation of Waukesha Wilson include a use of force by an officer, right? When can we expect a full report on that? When can we expect something on that to come forward? Because as far as we know, nothing has been said. There hasn't been any information given about Waukesha Wilson's death. So when can we expect that? I'm waiting.
You can talk to him afterwards. You know he can't respond. Go ahead. Keep going.
I can't. You just responded to me, so that tells me that you can respond to me. You know what I'm saying?
Commissioner, very briefly on that subject, as we do in every investigation, we'll look at every use of force and determine if there are any issues at all, including a use of force by the officer, especially in an in-custody death. It's not saying that there was one. Was saying that if there's anything that's uncovered by the investigation, including a contact made by the department or an inappropriate use of force, that we would note that and investigate that just like any other case.
Good, thank you. Next speaker.
The next speaker is Hamid Khan.
Mr. Khan.
How long has this mother had to continue to suffer with no answers? How long, Mr. Bustamante? We want answers.
Mr. Khan, are you going to speak or no? Okay, Mr. Khan.
Abuse of power, an affront to democracy, no transparency, traumatizing and blaming the victim. These are the things that typically Liberty Hill Foundation funds to fight back. These are the things that Sandra Figuera, who's an ED of a nonprofit in Echo Park, claimed to fight back. These are the very things that you're actively participating in. The very things. So I think the question really, and I'm just going to keep on looking on that side, because the question really is that what you do in your professional life or as the president of a foundation, what does it mean to participate in this forum? What does it mean that you're seeing this whole drama over the last 3 meetings that you have attended, Shane Goldsmith? What is your takeaway out of this thing? Obviously, what you're seeing is completely people being silenced. What you're seeing is on October 11th that how summarily we were kicked out of this room. What you're seeing is that when we even sent a letter asking, this letter was sent to Matt Johnson and Richard T. Fank, asking that those were 2 very key items that the community wanted to speak on, and they should be brought back. But we were quoted this 549, 57.9, and even when we cut through that, we find out that our rights were violated. So the question really goes to you, that how are you going to deal with it when you're not here? What does your conscience teach you? Because what you're in is a system that is, as it was said, is fundamentally flawed by design. What you're in, a system, is how patriarchy works, how white supremacy works, and how
next speaker, please.
General Jeff, please.
General Jeff. Thank you, sir.
You'll see that how patriarchy works.
Jeff.
Thank you, sir. General Jeff Skid Row. With the Los Angeles Police Commission, the Los Angeles Police Department's budget annually, $1.5 billion of American taxpayer money. I want to ask a question, and when we talk about possibly looking at a cost reduction and cost savings, how much money does LAPD waste on gas? You know, we talk about the black and white patrol cars, the undercover detective cars, and other cars. When they engage with a potential suspect or a person of interest, and they'll leave the car running, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, hour, or even longer. Over the course of a year, that's a lot of gas that's being wasted. In Skid Row and across this city, you see officers just driving around, logging up mileage. They're not doing anything but just driving around, logging up mileage. How much waste of gas is that? We need to, we the people request from this commission that the department give a report on gas. How much gas does LAPD waste on an annual basis? How many millions and millions of dollars does LAPD department waste on gas? And we the people request that this commission request for a presentation, because we the public, we want to hear a full presentation, PowerPoint presentation, all of that. We want to know how many millions of dollars. And if this commission knows, we would like to know where we could find that information, because we, the public, think that there's a whole lot of wasteful spending within the department for $1.5 billion, and we know there's a lot. The first place to look is wherever the gas is. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
There are no other public comment cards. We're now on item number 5, closed session items. We have 2 cards on 5A1. We have Michael Novick and Wayne from Encino.
Do you have any cards on 2 or 3?
We have 1 card on number 2. We have Wayne from Encino. And we have 2 cards on number 3.
Go ahead, Mr. Novick. Go ahead, sir. Your time started. Go ahead.
Say her name. Waukesha Wilson. 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 Say her name. Waukesha Wilson.
I'm commenting on the closed session items. You have once again 2 officer-involved shootings, one involving an animal, one involving a human being. You have so-called unintentional discharge. And these are from December 2015. And so, I really want to challenge you again to think about what you're involved in here and what you're doing as a police commission. You go through these cases week after week. We come here and we see 2 or 3 more officer-involved shootings every week from a year ago or 10 months ago. And so when are we going to get to the serial killer who killed 2 people in East L.A.? 10 months from now? I challenged Mr. Soboroff there when he was chairing, and he didn't even ask for those opposed when he took a vote, because he thinks you're such a rubber stamp that he doesn't even respect the other members of the board enough to see if there's any opposition. You have no deliberations. You're supposed to be a deliberative body. When these people come, most of the members of the Board of Police Commissioners remain silent. So I challenge you in this next session, when you don't have to embarrass yourselves in front of any of us, I want you to dig into these officer-involved shootings and find out what really happened. And don't just rubber stamp the next one. I've asked members of this board to vote to hold your meetings in public session out in the community. Nobody has responded. I asked members of this board to tally up how much money you're collecting week after week on these grants and things on top of the $1.5 billion that you spend for the department. Nobody has responded. I think you have no self-respect. And I don't understand what you're doing here. I understand what we're doing here. We're trying to challenge you to deal with reality. But you have no idea what you're doing here.
Wayne from Encino.
Thank you so much for not taking my public comment card. So, let's see here. Officer-involved shooting. You're catching up. This is only December 14th, 2015. These used to take a whole year. Now, you're down about 10 months now. So you're catching up with all of this. Now, this is really good. You name the involved party, Mr. Villavicencio. That could be Latin or it could be Italian. And only one cop, officer-involved shooting. So the problem you have is you only have a bare quorum here. So when you go back in there, I noticed that the woman that was attacked by that big email blast is not here today. So I think you should defer this item until Cynthia McLean Hill is present, because I believe that there is a campaign to intimidate her from being in these meetings. 1, because she's African American, and 2, because she speaks up for the community. And I don't think that's fair, and I don't think this decision is going to be based on objectivity. I think it's going to be based on partisan politics, currency of the LA Police Protective League, that has started this mass campaign accusing this commissioner of conspiracy to break these meetings up by standing with people from Black Lives Matters and other groups. So when she's here, you should have these items, so please don't put this thing on until she's back and she can answer these important allegations, because the city charter requires that the commissioners be independent of the political process and that they decide these things solely as a matter of department policy and not outside political influence.
And we have Wayne from Encino on 5A2.
So here we go. December the 20th, uninvolved, so we have a UD, that's an unintentional discharge. Again, this is what happens. You put the gun in your holster. Most of these cops put 15 in the clip plus 1 in the chamber, and then they put it in their little sidearm, and then the damn thing just goes off by accident. I've been telling you about these defective guns. You got to have every single sidearm inspected by an independent inspector, because How in the world, without a victim or an occurrence of, there's no witness, there's no involved party, this is just a gun that went off, right? This is just a shooting. So did this cop have a bad day and just shoot into a wall? Or was this person doing target practice in a park? I mean, how many rounds were fired? These are important questions that are not here for us to look at. So you're going to go in the back. Again, Cynthia McClain Hill is not here. She's currently under threat by the most powerful union in this West Coast, which is the LA Police Protective League. She is under threat, and I think that requires a serious look, because why should a commissioner be under threat for merely conducting commission business in the open? Everything she's done has been in the open. None of this has been behind closed doors. It's been completely out in the open. She's been the model definition of transparency. And yet, Mr. Johnson was also named in the Police Protective League letter as being a bad commissioner and engaging in bad behavior, and he's not here either. So again, the problem is you are subverting the charter by allowing these threats, and I believe they are terrorist threats, being labeled at the two African-American commissioners. I would recommend that this also be tabled until the lady and the gentleman are present.
Okay, 5A3, Wayne Spindler.
And then finally, we have the animal, the officer-involved shooting with an animal. How does an animal shoot somebody? I mean, so what happened here? I mean, somebody got shot. There's no involved party. You agreed to start listing the involved party on the agenda, so we must not have an involved party. But we have an OIS. So did the OIS victim, was the victim an animal? So you're saying a police officer shot an animal. That's what you're saying. How the hell do you shoot an animal? A dog in a backyard. Behind a fence. How does this happen? Why would somebody use a deadly weapon against Fido? Why would you do that? Why would you have canines? You could call a canine unit and open the door, and then your dog could meet the other dog, and they could communicate with one another to a standoff. You don't have to shoot a dog just because you're scared of a dog. I'm assuming it's not a cat. It's got to be a dog, right? Unless it's a horse, or was this a water buffalo? I don't understand this. So what animal was involved? Animal singular. What animal was involved? So again, I believe Cynthia McClain Hill is an animal activist, as I understand it. And she's not here today. She is under threat by your Police Protective League in that email. Matt Johnson is not here. He is also under threat. And also another thing they do, these people, which is Mr. Rose of Englander Kanabe Allen, who is also affiliated with your police union, he likes to go and file bar complaints and try to get people's licenses lifted. See, so Matt Johnson's under threat too. Stop threatening Matt Johnson and Cynthia McClain Hill, and please postpone these items until they're here.
And we have Ted Hayes on 5A3.
Mr. Hayes?
I don't have a tally on the number of officer-involved shootings with animals, but it seems to me, in my recollection, there have been quite a few. And as pointed out, we like to know the circumstances that prompt these kinds of shootings on the part of officers. But more importantly, on these closed session items, in italics at the bottom of the agenda, the board shall reconvene in open session to announce its decision. Well, it's not its decision. It's their decision. Because the Brown Act indicates that each commissioner is supposed to announce how they voted individually on each item. You never do that. You don't. But that's what the Brown Act requires you to do. Simple reading, simple understanding, but we get an understanding how you vote on these particular things when you take it into closed session, and only then. More importantly, just one other little thing is that I would not have seen this until I came in here, because the agenda is posted in an inconspicuous manner outside. on the clipboard that says, do not remove. So you can't pick it up and leaf through it because the clipboard says, do not remove. And it's not conspicuous. And more importantly, every police station is supposed to have complaint forms in various languages. They never have them in English. Never, ever. Caruso went crazy because he kept trying to make them put those things in the lobbies of police stations, and they never do it. So would you please put some English language complaint forms in the lobby? Thank you.
There are no other comment cards. The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item number 5A, 1, 2, and 3 in accordance with Government Code 54957. The Board of Police Commissioners has concluded its work in closed session. We are back in open session. In closed session, item number 5A1 was discussed and the Chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 5A2 was discussed and the Chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. And in closed session, item number 5A3 was discussed and the Chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. Is there a motion to adjourn, Mr.
Move to adjourn meeting. Second. All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jen Mahoney in Studio City. You're watching LA City View Channel 35, where you can get the best in culture and arts. It's our city, it's our channel.
Hey, just go!
Can the massive water demands of a self-contained community be environmentally